One they abandoned this kid as a baby, tossing him deep into a cursed forest, where no soldier, no criminal, and nothing breathing ever made it out alive. His only crime was being born. A dark curse coursed through his veins, the seed of darkness. That exact same power was supposed to turn him into a mindless, raging beast. Instead, a magical creature raised him until age 5, when an outcast left to rot in that dark forest, stumbled upon him, and chose to mold him into the perfect weapon. Every single night, Helmut forced down toxic, deadly herbs, just to build up his resistance and suppress the dark energy growing inside him. The physical conditioning was pure hell. The young boy had to master the sword until he could shatter solid rock with a single swing. Years of that endless torment made him the most terrifying monster the Academy had ever seen. Elite nobles, pampered and trained since birth, could not even touch him. This is Helmut, the boy abandoned by humanity, and now they are about to learn to fear their own creation. Years down the line, a band of assassins prowls the woods seeking a camp. They spot a figure resting near a campfire. One killer quietly draws his blade and hurls it at the bedroll, but it is empty. Suddenly, a voice speaks from behind as Helmut stands there with his bow drawn, staring coldly at the intruders. He warns them that because they initiated an attack, executing them is simply self-defense. He snaps off a small branch and knocks it like an arrow. The killers mock him, but the wood pierces one straight through his skull, killing him instantly. Terrified, the survivors scramble backward, screaming for their partner Vis, but Helmut raises his bow, charging it with radiant energy and releasing the makeshift arrow, which slams into another mercenary. Soon, only one assassin remains, shaking with pure terror as his comrades are slaughtered in seconds. Helmut snaps another twig from a tree. The last survivor throws his hands up, begging for his life, but Helmut tells him that those who hunt must be prepared to be hunted themselves. He fires and puts an end to his final target. Moments later, he counts the corpses and realizes this was the last wave. He sighs, finding the civilized world completely dull and nothing like the grand stories Darian used to tell years earlier. During a gathering of high priests, a clergyman discusses the lingering demonic energy. He notes that while the magical barrier stands, the corrupted woods remain a threat. He proposes sending dangerous criminals deep into the blighted territory. Since no traveler ever returns alive, the council is stunned, yet they ultimately agree to use the woods as an exile ground. Soon after, a frantic mother begs for her newborn's life, but a guard shoves her back, claiming the dark seed has already tainted the infant. The cruel exile ritual begins. The infant glows brightly as his sobbing mother screams the name Helmut. Their destination was the demonic forest, a graveyard where no traveler ever returns. Banished by divine magic, convicts were promised absolute absolution if they somehow survived. Born with a dark power, this baby was deemed an abomination, left completely alone in that merciless wilderness. Freezing cold and starvation plagued the child, but the dark energy within kept him alive. 10 years went by as the boy endured the brutal elements. Then, one day, a leopard approached the sleeping boy, sealing their fates together. 10 years later, Helmut sprints through the forest, hunting down a rabbit. He leaps at his prey, pinning it to the dirt. He calls out to Alaga to display his catch. The female leopard climbs down from a tree, finishing the prey. She asks if he is used to hunting yet. Helmut claims he is, but admits he only catches rabbits. Alaga explains that the tiny stone is a core that all demonic beasts possess. Consuming it makes them stronger, though this specific core is small because it came from a weak rabbit. Helmut reaches to grab the prize since it was his catch, but the leopard blocks him with her heavy tail. The boy makes a huge scene on the dirt, begging for the core, but she flatly refuses, warning that eating it would turn him into a monster because he is human. She adds that if that happened, he would be trapped in this forest forever. Helmut sighs and complains that this restriction is completely unfair. He argues he is already stuck here anyway, so getting stronger is his only hope, since he is too weak to explore other lands. Alaga shocks the young man by revealing he can leave the woods. Helmut instantly asks how she knows this when even she is trapped, and the leopard explains that another human once told her it was possible. Helmut is stunned to hear of another human and demands to know who. Alaga asks if he plans to search for him, warning that the elder must be dead by now because he was incredibly old despite his past strength. She explains that no normal person can resist the demonic energy except Helmut, who carries the seed of darkness. The boy asks where they met, wondering how he lived over 100 years. Annoyed, the leopard swings her tail at him, complaining that she raised him only for him to run away, but the youth quickly dodges. Helmut insists there is no harm in going because he will easily return. Laga loses her temper, telling him to do whatever he wants, and reveals the location lies to the east. Helmut bolts off immediately, leaving the leopard stunned, and she screams that she does not care what happens to him. Helmut sprints with a grin, excited at the thought of meeting another human. Someone strong enough to survive there without carrying the seed of darkness. Arriving breathless at the coordinates, Helmut wonders if this structure was always here, and leaps over the wall, confident that only a human would build a massive fortress. Suddenly, a hand slams the boy's head into the ground with absolutely terrifying force, causing a massive impact. A harsh voice demands to know the intruder's identity and who sent him. Helmut explains he came alone because Alaga mentioned a human lived here. The stranger releases him, asking why he came, stating that if he was just looking for another human, he came to the wrong place. Helmut gets up and declares his desire to escape this forest. The man introduces himself as Darian and asks for his name, which the youth reveals is Helmut. Hearing that Alaga spoke of an exit, Darian warns that the outside world is not nearly as beautiful as he imagines. It is filled with weak creatures, lacking fangs or claws, yet incredibly cruel and treacherous. The elder asks if the boy was born in this forest, and Helmut reveals he was abandoned at birth. Darian deduces that the youth carries the seed of darkness, meaning he is of noble. His blood spared him from immediate death, but it doesn't change the fact that he was abandoned. The elder helps because he owes a debt to the leopard, telling the boy to listen carefully. Darian explains that because of that seed of darkness, Helmut will be hunted and constantly face death if he leaves. When asked if he still wants to go, the boy nods and the old man grabs his arm. He's restless, but to survive the outside world, he must first learn to behave like a human. Helmut asks what he must do, and Darian answers that the boy must pass through the barrier. Above all, the old man insists that the boy needs to get much stronger and eventually find someone who knows how to cross that border. Helmut asks who the old man really is, but Darian refuses to say. Next, the boy asks how to build his strength, and the elder tells him to just obey his commands. Inside the house, Helmut slams a broom onto the floor, demanding to know why he must do chores. Darian explains that this is how humans live. The boy complains that the place is filthy, but the elder simply asks if he prefers sleeping in the forest, forcing Helmut to reluctantly accept his orders. As time passes, the old man sets up a bedroll. Helmut collapses onto it, asking if he can finally rest. Darian scolds him for being lazy, telling him to get up since there is still work to do. Before tossing some clothes his way, Helmut complains that the outfit is tight and uncomfortable, but the elder insists that humans wear clothes and that he shouldn't ruin them, leaving him hesitant. Later, the two head deep into the forest, where Helmut asks why they've returned. Darian warns him that he must learn what is safe to eat and how to turn inedible things into food. The elder explains that all tubercular beasts and plants have a core, and even after removing it, the toxic energy remains. However, there are things without demonic energy. He shows him how to extract the core and purify the food with water, urging the boy to taste it. Right away, Helmut eats and marvels that even forest plants can taste amazing. Darian warns they will head back once he finishes. Another day passes, and the boy grumbles about needing human knowledge, questioning what this has to do with hauling heavy water, feeling forced to do weird tasks daily. At that moment, a leopard lunges from behind, forcing Helmut to drop the water. Ilaga asks what on earth the boy is doing, questioning if it's a joke. Helmut explains that Darian ordered him to fetch water. The leopard complains that the boy never listened to him, but Helmut insists that this chore will make him stronger. Ilaga asks what he will do with that strength and if he truly intends to leave the forest. The young man claims he is not a beast, which is why he must enter the human world. The leopard looks down, asking if anything good awaits him out there. Helmut admits he doesn't know, but points out that nothing will change if he stays behind. The boy then walks away, promising to see the leopard later. Nalaga watches him leave with a heavy heart, silently wishing him a great life. Returning to training, Darian throws water on the The young boy grumbles about the brutal training, but his master orders him to keep his posture. Upright, Helmut tries to argue that he is exhausted, but the old man asks if he would rather rot in the monster-filled forest, forcing the youth to hold his exhausting stance even. As he grumbles, Darian silently notes the boy is holding up surprisingly well, and surviving that deadly forest makes you different. The master realizes the kid has incredible potential beyond just the seed of darkness. Training him will not be a waste of effort. As dusk falls, the old master finally tells Helmut to stop and sit down. The exhausted boy immediately collapses onto the dirt, while his mentor simply watches over him. Helmut groans that he is starving, so they sit down to eat when Darian suddenly orders him to use a spoon. Taking his very first bite, the boy loves the taste, wolfs it down, and highly praises his master's stew. Darian suddenly stands up, leaving the young apprentice wondering if the old man will eat too. But the master tells his pupil to simply listen while keeping his mouth full. He explains that Helmut came to him to escape the forest and grow strong, but points out that he is still a fragile human with limits, not some immortal demonic beast. For that reason, the mentor reveals he will teach him the way of the sword starting tomorrow, but first he must show him its true nature. Darian then points a simple wooden practice sword at a massive boulder, telling his pupil to watch closely, slashing the air with absolute and deep concentration. Then the old master unleashes a blinding arc of raw energy that gouges the earth, utterly shocking Helmut, who can only stare and ask how a wooden stick is glowing. Darian swings the blade upward, striking the target. The massive boulder immediately shatters into countless tiny pieces, leaving Helmut staring at his teacher in absolute shock. Darian explains that this power is how humans survive. Amazed, the boy asks what that was, and the master reveals it is called Vis, a hidden aura of energy. He explains that although the seed of darkness inside Helmut holds a completely different attribute, they are entirely separate forces. Hearing this, Helmut eagerly begs to learn it right now, but his master smacks him and tells him to be patient since his body is not yet ready to control such power. The master stresses that right now, he must focus entirely on understanding the sword, warning the young boy that his journey will be brutal and painful. Even so, he urges his apprentice to push forward without any hesitation, because the blade always rewards those who give everything. With that, Darian hands the wooden sword to Helmut, who takes it with a confident grin, promising that he understands. Months pass, and the master barks at him to focus harder. During their daily training, Helmut grumbles, insisting his posture was perfect. But the old warrior demands proper respect. The young swordsman quickly corrects his tone, arguing that he performed the strike perfectly, but Darian disagrees. When Helmut demands to know what went wrong, his master points out that technique is not everything, and that he actually needs to use his brain. Frustrated and lost, the boy yells for his master to explain it clearly from the start, complaining that riddles will not help him learn. Darian silently notes how bizarre the boy is because his skills grow incredibly fast despite him having zero patience for actual lessons. He knows that the dark seed typically corrupts human hearts, making them prone to violence. Plus, Helmut lived among wild beasts, yet the youth proved to be the exact opposite, rational, gentle, and completely without any desire to surrender, proving there was something unique about him. The master stepped in, knocking Helmut's sword away with a swift, sudden strike, while complaining that he had grown weaker. After another blow, Helmut protested, prompting Darian to ask if he understood the difference. The boy denied it, but quickly changed his mind when the strict master threatened to leave him without any dinner. Helmut noticed that the sheer amount of pain, the speed, and the target's hit were different, but wondered why since the movements seemed identical. Darian explained that his pupil only knew how to copy. The true difference lay within the muscles, the fingertips, and the fluid movement that matched his speed alongside a deep mental connection with his blade. The elder pointed out that every element had to be under Helmut's absolute control. Only then could he claim mastery, pouring his heart and soul into every motion to comprehend the path of the sword. Currently, the master concluded, the youth merely swung his blade aimlessly, behaving like a lumberjack rather than a swordsman. Time passed under Darian's strict guidance. Later, Helmut sighed near the river, muttering that while his master ordered him to rest, doing nothing was boring. Suddenly, he spotted Alaga and realized just how much time had passed since they last met. the great leopard noted that Helmut had grown, though the boy downplayed it, promising he would grow even more. Next, he reminded his beast friend that Darian still owed her a massive debt, and Alaga replied that she merely granted him permission to live in the forest. Helmut teased that she hated company, but the powerful leopard scoffed at his stupidity, reminding him that she was the ruler of the central region of the Forest of Roots, ready to destroy any intruder. However, she corrected herself, admitting she tried to be careful. When that wretched serpent caught her off guard, Helmut asked if she meant the monstrous Naho from the west, and Alaga explained it was a two-headed serpent that once hunted Darian. Helmut then asked if she could actually defeat his master in battle. Alaga looked away, admitting she honestly did no, explaining that demonic beasts openly radiate their power, allowing others to gauge their true strength, whereas humans can hide it. Helmut was stunned, figuring she probably could not win. The leopard snapped back that nothing was certain, adding that even though Naho loathed the human, she couldn't harm him. Helmut asked why they hated each other, and Alaga explained the old man had destroyed a cursed domain the serpent was creating. Curious and deeply bothered by his own ignorance, Helmut demanded a clear explanation. The leopard smirked, offering to show him, then leaped gracefully through the forest canopy. As they traveled high above the trees, Helmut quickly deduced what it was, and Alaga confirmed it was indeed the cursed territory. Below them, helpless humans were being brutally whipped and beaten. Helmut watched this horrific human farm with profound sadness. Suddenly, a man collapsed to the dirt while a cruel guard ordered him to keep working. Then the guard ruthlessly whips a slave, shouting at him to stop faking and move. Helmut wonders why the guard keeps beating him, and Alaga explains the harsh reality. The victim was slacking off. Just then, some women pass and the overseer barks. As we watch from a distance, Helmut stares in wonder at these girls. He wonders what they are, noting they look like him yet seem different. Alaga asks if his curious question is indeed about the human females. The young boy wonders why they are heading inside during broad daylight. The leopard coldly explains they are food, even though they are human. Humans are split into genders here, and the monster Naho prefers the females. But if they are too small, they must wait for them to grow. The women eventually become dinner, while the men are made lifetime slaves. Helmut suddenly realizes the horrific truth of this farm, and Alaga grimly nods. Now let's look at the guards, all human, led by a ruthless bald man. The overseer mentions a mistake, but the leader only cares about upcoming sacrifices. Suddenly, his cruel eyes lock onto the young girls standing nearby him. He grabs one girl's face, whispering that he might let her live longer. Dragging her by the hair into a hut, the monster prompts Helmut to ask if that beast is the leader. Alaga replies he is great at hunting. She adds that if Helmut were unlucky, he would be just like them. The young boy notes the leopard never treated him like a slave, asking why. Alaga confesses she hates the idea of Naho getting more human livestock. Helmut mutters that her reasoning sounds exactly like how a wild beast thinks. The leopard spots the humans gathering, warning him they need to slip away. Before they can move, she catches a scent as the serpent Naho arrives. The massive snake hisses that he finally found Alaga, mocking her familiar face. Growling his name in absolute fury, the leopard demands to know his business. Helmut feels a terrifying weight on his chest, though Naho barely moves. Naho stares at the boy, noting young males taste delicious when eaten early. The giant snake mockingly tells the leopard to take a quick bite. Alaga refuses, spitting that the boy's flavor would only disappoint him. Naho agrees but suddenly freezes, catching a completely different, familiar scent. He demands to know the boy's link to Darian, making Helmut whimper. Alaga cuts him off, swiping her powerful paw right at the serpent. She snarls, asking where he thinks he is pushing his hideous face. Naho chuckles softly, telling her to relax because he is a pacifist. He explains he merely smelled that dangerous warrior's scent on the boy's clothes. It has been only a few years since that warrior destroyed his farm, after all. Alaga snaps back immediately, declaring the kid has absolutely no connection to Darian. He simply stole those old clothes. Naho remarks that is quite a relief. Otherwise, he would have ripped the weak young boy to pieces right there. The leopard growls, warning that if he touches the boy, she will shred him. Naho chuckles, stating he prefers peace since they have known each other so long. But he warns her to get out of his sight and never return. The very thought of her presence in his territory completely disgusts him. As the serpent slithers away, we can see Helmut collapsing to the ground, trembling. Terrified, Helmut faints right after. On the way back, he complains of a splitting headache. Eliga warns him not to wander out alone anymore, since Naho has spotted him. The beast explains that since the snake knows his location, it won't venture here. But she warns that they can never be entirely sure. Helmut nods, and his friend asks why he looks so gloomy, urging him to be cautious since there is no other option at his age. The boy then asks if he can grow strong like her. And Darian, Eliga explains that the human possesses strength most people could never hope to achieve in a lifetime. Helmut quietly repeats those words about living a lifetime, and Eliga continues, explaining that it all depends on him. If he truly wants to grow stronger and escape this forest, he must push past his limits. Eliga watches him closely for a moment, then turns her head, warning that the human is near. She has to slip away. Darian walks up holding a large bundle of hay, noting that his young disciple has been traveling. Helmut turns around, and the old master warns that dusk is falling. The boy looks down at his teacher and the giant leopard. Eliga turns, promising she will watch over him. As time passes, Helmut is seized by crippling stomach pain, writhing in pure agony. Fearing he might actually die, he recalls Darian's strict command to consume the herbs before bed. The boy asks what they were, and Darian reveals they are toxic weeds. Helmut complains that his teacher is forcing him to ingest poison, but the master barks at him to stop whining, because this is necessary to suppress the power of the seed. Cut back to the night, where the boy writhes in agony, cursing his master for failing to warn him about this, gripping his shirt tightly while desperately shouting Darian's name. Gazing up at the high cliff, Darian notes that 4 years have already passed. Months fly by. Helmut relentlessly swings his sword, carving hundreds of deep gashes into a tree. Darian walks over, studying his student, and remarks that the boy finally seems to like the blade now. The apprentice replies that his body feels lighter and his vision has grown incredibly sharp. Wondering if the toxic herbs are responsible, Darian suggests it could be their doing, then inquires about the agonizing pain. Helmut replies that he simply doesn't feel it at all. Waking up fully energized every morning, the master explains that after all these months, the time has come, asking if he still remembers when they once discussed this. The old man explains that one cannot see this energy because it gathers silently within. If the boy's physical foundation and swordplay weren't at a solid baseline, training this would have been pointless, which is why he held back until now. But his disciple's young body is finally prepared. Darian unsheathes his steel, taking a deep breath to channel raw energy into it, sending a crushing pressure toward Helmut. Darian explains that one must dissolve the ambient energy, draw it deep inside to gain complete control, and then unleash it through the blade. The master commands the youth to raise his weapon and maintain his deep breathing while struggling to absorb energy from nature itself. Darian strikes, commanding him to clear his mind and move gracefully so he maintains his tempo without disrupting the flow of vis. Helmut parries the blow, grunting from the pressure, but Darian lunges forward to grab his skull and unleash a follow-up slash, which the agile student barely manages to evade. The boy he dodges the heavy blows, asking if his master is genuinely trying to kill him, only to hear a blunt reply that he lost his stance way too quickly. Helmut tries to breathe, calmly lowers his blade and unleashes a flurry of strikes. Darian blocks, effortlessly instructing the boy to use his senses to absorb more energy. The young warrior steps back. His master reminds him that perfection takes time right from the beginning, so they must train patiently like this day after day. Helmut lunges forward with another strike. The old master demands to see his true will as their blades clash repeatedly. The young warrior's training progresses steadily under his mentor's brutal teachings, leading to the breakthrough where he finally learns to channel vis. 4 years pass, and Helmut slices a massive tree in half with a single swing. He sighs, wondering if today's brutal training is finally finished. Darian remarks dryly that after 4 long years, he has finally improved slightly. The boy answers that he still has a long way to go, proposing a duel, but his master tells him to manifest his vis first. The young man remembers how the old master previously refused because they simply were not on the same level. Still, he closes his eyes and begins to focus, materializing his inner energy. Darian watches silently, amazed by the incredible growth his student has shown. Even carrying the seed of darkness, the boy's talent could easily turn the Entire world upside down, for better or worse. The old master sighs, wondering if it is time to let his student go, quietly admiring the impressive control of his glowing vis. Before finally announcing that the critical moment has finally arrived, Helmut looks confused, asking if he means that day. Darian confirms it, telling the young warrior that he must now leave the forest. The boy objects, claiming he is not strong enough yet, but his master explains that if that dark seed matures, escaping the barrier will become completely impossible. Therefore, this is his one chance, and he must listen to the explanation. Darian reveals that the human world lies south of the Forest of Roots, and that Helmut must cross through a weakened point in the divine barrier to reach it. Human resilient enough to withstand the weakened barrier can pass, even harboring the seed of darkness. The young warrior asks where this weak point is, but Darian admits he does not know, since he never searched for it himself. However, he warns that someone else already tried. Because a human village exists within the domain of Naho, the two-headed snake. The village chief and Arugo, who guided the humans there, must know the precise location. Helmut realizes who they are and accepts Darian's orders with a sigh. The master warns that he will face countless new experiences. Out there, while it may seem incredibly exciting at first, sudden tragedies always strike without warning. It is not something he can easily prevent or avoid. He just must remain constantly alert. Darian places a heavy hand on the boy's shoulder, warning him that when the time comes, he will face pain, frustration, and deep despair. But no matter what happens, he must never lose his way, asking if his student has any final questions. Helmut clenches his fist tight and asks if his master is not coming along. The old man coughs softly, confirming he will stay behind. He turns away, announcing he needs a nap, and tells the boy to return tomorrow morning to receive his parting gift, leaving the old master to his solitude. Helmut watches his master leave in silence, then walks over to the frozen lake to think. As he ponders, Alaga approaches, pointing out that the young man does not look excited. Helmut admits it, explaining that although he can finally leave, a strange, complicated feeling weighs on him. The massive leopard gazes at him, understanding his silent struggle. She says that feeling just shows you are human. The next morning, Helmut opens the cabin door, waving goodbye to Alaga one last time. Stepping inside, he finds Darian kneeling on the floor with a sword and a bag, but his old master is completely lifeless. Helmut calls out to him, but the heavy silence tells him it is truly time to leave. Gathering the final gifts, the young warrior gazes at his master with deep sadness and grief. With teary eyes, he promises to never forget him as he departs. Outside, Alaga remarks that the old human simply reached his destined end, and Helmut should not feel guilty, as every greeting eventually ends in a farewell. Then the leopard wags her tail and hands him an old paper he arrived with years ago. She says it might be useful. Inspecting it, Helmut notices a rare metal necklace, and Alaga immediately guesses he must be a noble's son. The young protagonist reads a message from Margaret Irene wishing light on her son's journey, realizing this must be his mother's name. Alaga suggests seeking her outright after leaving the forest. She warns that the great beast Naho is currently hibernating and will only awaken stir if there is trouble, though Helmut will sense its presence inside its territory. Helmut confidently promises he can manage. The leopard gently urges the young man to set off now while he has the chance. He bids her farewell, wishing her long, peaceful life, which she accepts with a warm smile, telling him to stay safe. Meanwhile, at the human farm, Arugo walks silently with his hood up before entering his house. He blows out the candle, only to be ambushed by Helmut, who presses a cold blade to his throat. He warns him not to make a sound. Black magic is a corrupt power capable of empowering even the weakest sorcerers, drawing in those desperate enough to cross any line for ultimate strength. Arugo was once a jealous mage who dreamed of becoming the strongest, choosing this forbidden path. To succeed, he required intense negative emotions, kidnapping innocents to fuel his strength with their suffering. He thrived on the endless terror of those he captured. Eventually, a rival sorcerer exposed his crimes, leading directly to his capture. To escape execution, he chose permanent exile inside the deadly Forest of Roots. There he submitted to a massive two-headed serpent for territory, using his magic to herd desperate humans under penalty of death. That marked the start of the human farm where Arugo ruled like a tyrant and treated everyone like cattle, while Naho never intervened as long as he received sacrifices, serving the serpent, the dark maid. began chasing his grand ambitions once more, but the arrival of winter made him anxious. Horrific demon beasts raided the farm daily while Naho remained asleep. Even during these massive crises, the mage enjoyed his twisted life. Back in the present, with a blade resting against his neck, the villain demands to know what the intruder wants. Helmut coldly demands a safe passage out of this dangerous forest of roots. Knowing the mage has the answers, Arugo scoffs at his insolence, asking if he is Darian's student, demanding to know why he should cooperate. Helmut warns the corrupt mage that if he refuses to speak, he will lose his life, but Arugo sneers, stating that if he dies, Naho will instantly awaken, dragging the young warrior straight to hell along with him. Even if Helmut is just a human who cannot face a lord, he doesn't care. He tells the old man not to worry about him and to skip any tricks since he'll go to the same place anyway. Arugo warns he is the only one who knows how to escape this forest, and if he dies, the boy gets trapped forever. But Helmut fires back, saying mages are obsessed with recording everything, and if he keeps searching, he'll eventually find it. Realizing the kid is dead serious, the mage decides to tell him the way out and starts descending the stairs, with Helmut's sword pointed at his back. Arugo asks for the boy's name, but Helmut says it doesn't matter. Annoyed, the mage warns that his escape method is purely theoretical. Nobody has ever tested or had the skills to try, though it might be possible for Darian. Seeing that the young warrior has no plans of leaving just yet, Arugo asks what happened to his master. Getting no answer, he deduces the old man must be dead and begins to cackle. Helmut orders the mage to hand over the book, but Arugo asks how he feels about becoming his successor and staying here. When the boy refuses, the mage shouts that he is worthy, promising to give him everything in this sanctuary. Helmut grips his sword tighter and warns he wants absolutely nothing from him, telling him to shut up and hand over the book. Arugo complies and explains he found this book on a stealth mage who failed to escape before dying here. According to the records, a waterfall south of the forest combines water and demonic energy to weaken the divine power. Even so, the barrier remains at the highest level, and anyone with demonic energy will turn to ash. Helmut spares the mage's life out of respect for Darian, but slams a fist into Arugo's stomach, leaving him groaning. Then, the young swordsman uses a rope to bind him, strikes his pressure points to seal his magic, and warns him he'll be freed later if he behaves. Arugo screams that this arrogant brat sealed his mana and will never get out alive. Helmut keeps walking, only turning his head to say that was obvious, leaving the mage tied up in the chamber. Furious at being humiliated by a brat, Arugo unleashes his energy, muttering that such arrogance will destroy the boy. Screaming for Lord Naho to awaken, suddenly the castle floor violently shakes as a massive two-headed serpent bursts from the ground, calling for Arugo, demanding to know why it was awakened. The panicked mage warns it is urgent, shouting that Darian is dead and his successor is within reach. Naho lets out an ominous demonic laugh, declaring that this is the perfect opportunity to slaughter the remaining humans. The giant beast slithers back underground, promising it will find him. Hearing this, Arugo laughs at the foolish brat mockingly, claiming he won't get away with such disrespect. After all, nothing in life is free, and Helmut should be prepared. Meanwhile, he leaps through the forest canopy, sensing a massive threat and regretting sparing Arugo's life. He notices nearby demonic beasts fleeing in terror. Sensing a crushing pressure on his body, he pushes himself to move faster. Suddenly, he stops in a clearing, realizing he has only made it this far without even leaving the forest territory yet. The entire area thickens with demonic energy. Feeling this pressure, Helmut tightens his grip on his sword as a serpent's screech echoes. Suddenly, Naho materializes right before him. The massive serpent greets the boy, claiming he knew Helmut would eventually wander back into his domain. The beast adds that he cannot let him escape after waiting all this time, but Helmut warns he will only depart once he takes the serpent's life. The monster laughs, mocking the boy's newfound courage, calling his tiny body useless. Suddenly, the giant beast lunges, ordering the boy straight into his stomach. A massive explosion rocks the clearing as Naho strikes, but the agile youth evades the strike by leaping backward. Coughing through the rising dust, the young warrior searches for his foe until a voice behind him mockingly praises his quick reflexes. Naho dares the boy to keep trying. As he unleashes a crushing, murderous aura, Helmut tries to calm his racing heart, Telling himself that even against a monster, an opening will appear. He refuses to surrender. As the serpent charges a deadly sphere of energy, the boy dodges the blast by sliding swiftly to the side. Instantly, he charges directly toward the gaping jaws, narrowly evading the secondary head. Planting his feet, he springs toward the primary skull, believing that no matter how dense the demonic force, a weak spot must exist for his own blade to pierce through. With a swift movement, he strikes, slicing directly into the monster's glowing eye. Naho shrieks in pure agony as the blade bites deep, while the young swordsman drops back to earth, knowing he successfully bought a precious moment. Winning is out of the question, and he knows his current strength is simply not enough. That single strike drained far too much energy, and continuing this battle means certain death. Nearby, the blinded serpent thrashes in absolute madness. Helmut watches in horror as one violent head begins eating the other. Consumed by agonizing frenzy, Naho spits that he severed the useless limb and will now annihilate the brat. Lunging forward with insane speed, Helmut raises his sword to block, but the sheer force hurls him backward. Looming high, the serpent sneers, noticing that his prey has vanished into the shadows. Losing an eye has made tracking his target much more difficult, but the beast tirelessly hunts for the boy, hidden. Helmut, panting heavily, questions if blinding a single eye was truly his maximum effort. Yet he realizes the distraction worked. This precious window is his sole opportunity to run. Suddenly, a cold shiver runs down his spine as the massive predator looms close. Naho hisses that he found the troublesome pest, mocking his foolish attempt to hide inside his domain. Helmut groans as the deadly serpent strikes to finish him, but the young warrior raises his blade, refusing to die. In this desolate place, suddenly, a brilliant green aura erupts across the battlefield. Laga stands protectively before him, remarking on the passing years. The serpent snarls her name in sheer fury. Helmut weakly calls out to his feline savior. Overwhelmed by the sheer intensity of her power, she commends his incredible survival, but commands him to leave the battle to her. Though he attempts to protest, Laga silences him, insisting there is a far greater task waiting for him. He must seize his freedom immediately. Tears sting the young warrior's eyes as Alaga demands he not waste this sacrifice, fiercely yelling for him to flee. He desperately wants to speak but holds his tongue. Whispering his gratitude, he turns and dashes into the distance. Alaga advances as the serpent mocks the foolish beast for thinking she can challenge him on his home ground, but she calmly retorts that she was only doing what she had to. Naho just laughed, calling their friendship pathetic, but thanked her for coming alone, since now he could finally end her life. Alaga asked if the serpent really believed he could do with one head what he failed to do with two, and the clash between the two beasts began. Days later, Helmut slashed through demonic beasts with his blade, wondering if it was finally over. He had been running for days since escaping Alaga's territory, realizing that as long as he fought monsters weaker than Naho, he could easily win. The boy knew that without meeting Alaga or Darian, he never would have survived. Now, for their sakes, he had only one shot to escape this forest. Helmut quickly realized this area was different from Alaga's land because he could barely feel any energy. He wondered if his seed was reacting to the barrier, knowing he would be in deep trouble without this cover. Just then, a feather drifted down into his hand, and something rushed over his head, making him react to the sudden wind. A phoenix landed on the ground, demanding to know what a human child wanted in her domain. Helmut knew this would be hard, but he never expected to run into a beast right at the divine barrier. The creature introduced herself as Igrel and asked for his name. He remembered hearing that name before and introduced himself. The ruler of the south smelled Naho's familiar scent on him, masked heavily by the smell of blood, alongside a faint trace of Alaga. Igrel asked if he was the child of those beasts, and the boy replied that he had a connection to the leopard. The phoenix ruffled her feathers, asking why he invaded her territory. Helmut explained he had his own reasons and served no master. Igrel demanded a good reason to spare his life. Keeping his composure, the boy claimed what he planned to do could be useful, instantly sparking the phoenix's curiosity. He told her she would witness the very first human to cross the barrier and escape the forest of roots. Igrel burst into hysterical laughter, asking if he truly believed that was possible when his seed made him just like the beasts. Helmut begged for a chance, arguing he was the only human crazy enough to come this far for freedom. Igrel remarked that she Hadn't hunted a human in ages, and killing him now felt like a waste, but the boy fired back, stating that while humans stumbled here all the time, he would be the sole survivor to pass the barrier. Igrel tilted her head, warning that while this human was clever, he was also stupid enough to risk his life on a fool's errand. She declared it wasn't her business whether he survived or died, but if he succeeded, he would be the first. Helmut replied that she would be the first beast to witness it. Intrigued, Igrel decided she would protect him until he reached the barrier. She warned him to prepare his last words, just in case so she could pass them to Alaga. Helmut asked her to tell the leopard that he survived and successfully escaped the forest. Locking eyes with him, Igrel promised to deliver that exact message, calling him a truly special child. Helmut sighed and bolted toward the water, knowing there was only one shot. As he plunged, he swam forward, protected by a bubble as he entered a cave. The boy kept. He throws himself against the barrier, desperate to break through the forest of roots, but the divine, purifying light guarding the realm of humans starts searing into Helmut's flesh, cleansing his impurities. He struggles to force his way forward, but the agonizing pressure of the barrier is too much. Darkness takes him, his mind wandering where he should go, seen as human to beasts, yet a beast to men. Elsewhere, a carriage continues its journey. On their journey, Finn asks Tanya why they are stopping near the forest of roots. She patiently reminds him they need occasional rest. Besides, if a demonic beast attacks, even a mercenary like him will have to fight. She tells her complaining partner to hush and fetch some water. Finn grumbles about the creeping darkness, but Tanya kicks him forward, sending him on his way. He grunts, sensing something is wrong as he approaches the river. Right there, he spots a human body. Terrified, the mercenary sprints back, shouting about a corpse in the ravine. The others dismiss it as a log, but Tanya orders him to lead the way and retrieve their bucket, warning him of the consequences. Reaching the spot, she confirms it is indeed a body, but quickly notices Helmut is still alive. She urgently calls for help to save the boy. Opening his eyes, Helmut slowly regains consciousness. Staring at the two mercenaries, he wonders if he successfully escaped the forest of roots. Tanya gently tells him there is no need to fear. He is safe now. Her partner found him by the ravine while retrieving water, and she is glad he survived. She asks for his name, and he introduces himself as Helmut, claiming no memory of anything else. Though he looks uninjured, she finds his amnesia concerning. Introducing herself as a rank 3 mercenary before offering her hand. Helmut notes she is another human. She asks if he recognizes their surroundings, explaining they are near the forest of ruin. His memory loss seems severe. She questions him further, but Helmut insists he only knows his name and how to wield a sword. Tanya feels relieved he is physically intact, suggesting he just needs a physician to examine his head. Assuring him of her protection, she promises to help until he recovers, taking full responsibility for him from now on. Helmut thanks her. Hours later, the boy sits atop a rock, reflecting on his narrow escape and the need for time to fully recover. His body is weaker than during his early training, yet the dark seed remains intact. Without its protection, his life surely would have ended. Now that he is among humans, he must keep this power hidden. He decides to feign memory loss while secretly searching for the owner of the golden necklace. He concludes there is no need to rush. He must take things slowly now that his journey has begun. The next morning, the mercenaries are stunned to see a clean-bathed Helmut. Struck by his dramatic transformation, they wonder if he is some hidden noble. Finn remarks on how fascinating the change truly is. Since he looked like a floating corpse, she asks once more where he came from. He replies that he has no clue, unable to remember a single thing. Throwing her arm around Helmut's shoulder, Tanya proudly declares that he is now a rookie in their squad. The boy politely asks if she slept well. She replies that he looks much better clean. Finn immediately begins teasing them. Teasing her about the boy's handsome face, Finn gets punched and told to shut up and help the others. Tanya notes they will reach the village within 4 days, promising to find a doctor the second they arrive. Helmut accepts her kindness, and she orders the group to pack their gear. Ready to leave, leaving Helmut and Finn completely speechless. As the convoy marches alongside the carriage, the blonde boy asks if Helmut is holding up. The young man nods. Nearby, a horse leans into Helmut's gentle touch. making Finn suspect he has a way with animals, noting that Helmut does not look like a noble, but he is certainly no ordinary peasant. His strange speech patterns suggest a similar age, though he remains highly guarded. Suddenly, Helmut stumbles, desperately gasping for breath as his energy completely drains. Exhausted, he is told by Finn to climb inside so he will not slow them down. Helmut stubbornly refuses, pushing forward while trying to understand his fatigue. In the forest of roots, a single day was enough to fully recover. Yet he decides to keep marching. Soon, they arrive at the city. The doctor examines Helmut and finds absolutely nothing wrong with him. Given his highly robust build, Tanya instantly questions the physician's expertise. This deeply offends the doctor, though he begrudgingly writes up a prescription. Tanya yells that the boy was recently unresponsive, demanding a thorough medical exam. As the shouting match wears Helmut out, Finn asks about his lost memories. The physician grumbles that his memory will return eventually, telling them to leave. They are simply too annoying, which only serves to make Tanya even angrier. And drag out the argument. Later that evening, she checks in on the exhausted boy. She asks if he is all right, recalling Finn's worrisome report. He reassures her, noting he already took the medicine and just needs sleep. Tanya observes that his body is exceptionally well trained, and he must have studied under a skilled master. Helmut silently agrees with her. She is highly perceptive. He admits the blade indeed feels completely natural. After a brief pause, the vice captain proposes a friendly sparring match. Noting his hesitation, she suggests that combat might trigger his lost memories. Scheduling the match for tomorrow, Helmut recalls her respected status as a silver rank 3 mercenary, deciding to accept to test his own latent abilities. Measuring his current strength, the next day they head to the training grounds. Amidst the training crowd, the soldiers spot Tanya and the boy. They eagerly ask about a duel, jokingly warning her not to ruin the kid's handsome face, immediately ticking her off. In response, Tanya slaps them hard, sending them crashing to the dirt. She then tosses a wooden sword to Helmut, announcing that the match ends upon first knockout, urging him to bring his absolute best against a vice captain. Helmut shifts into a defensive stance. He braces himself, knowing he cannot afford to lower his guard. Far from peak condition and unable to use vis, he must deflect her strikes. As the mercenaries gather to watch, the young swordsman moves forward and lunges from the left, but Tanya quickly blocks his attack, knowing she outclasses him in raw strength and that he cannot overpower her directly. Helmut dodges a downward slash, focusing purely on evasion. In a flash, Tanya shifts her balance and delivers a sharp kick straight to the young man's ribs. Helmut feels the blow, realizing his body cannot keep up with his reactions, feeling as if he is underwater. Yells that he is overthinking, unleashing a flurry of rapid strikes. Helmut tries to defend but gets tricked by a clever feint. Closing the distance, she strikes his gut, sending the young warrior flying in sheer pain. Surprisingly, Tanya sheathes her sword and Helmut yields. The girl notes his frustration but admits he fights well, while Helmut admits his annoyance at being overwhelmed, even though he realizes that she is weaker than Darian and has clumsy swordsmanship. He reflects that, as Darian warned, the human world is tough since he was just beaten by a rank 3 fighter. A man approaches and introduces himself as Finn, the leader of the mercenary squad and a gold rank 2 warrior. He commends Helmut's performance and announces that the young man passed the entry test. Seeing the boy's confusion, Finn explains that his squad rescued him, not wanting to leave him wandering with no memories. They tested him since their squad does not accept just anyone. Helmut wonders if this will be trouble, but Finn explains the others welcomed him because, unlike the other young men, Helmut did not try to hit on Tanya. He then hands him a temporary rank 4 scroll, telling the youth to register before ordering the squad to introduce themselves. The mercenaries step up, revealing that most are rank 3 except for Finn, a bronze rank 4. Helmut remembers Darian's warning about trusting humans, wondering if he is truly safe. He asks Finn how long he must remain, explaining that he will need to leave as soon as his memories return. The captain tells him he is free to go, provided he never abandons an active mission halfway through. Helmut decides this offer is fair, since it is much better than wandering aimlessly, allowing him to find answers about his birth and grasp the true meaning of allies. Sometime later in the office, a man named Miles slams his desk, furious about this critical mission, questioning the inclusion of a fresh, rank 4 mercenary. Finn defends Helmut, insisting that the kid is useful. Miles yields under Finn's soul authority but warns that the rank 4 gets only a third of the payout and that the Terex squad is joining the mission too. After Finn nods, Miles sets the briefing for 7 in the morning and leaves. Tanya remarks that things went smoothly, asking if Helmut is prepared, getting a firm nod. Finn explains that the massive quest begins early tomorrow and that all rank 4 members, they should only fight in extreme emergencies. The vice leader orders everyone to rest up and stay prepared, while another member advises Helmut to ignore the constant teasing from the Terex squad, who clearly despise their group. Once Finn ends the meeting, Helmut heads to the training ground, furious with himself. He knows that blaming his poor performance on a lack of recovery is just a weak excuse, admitting he made way too many mistakes and couldn't even touch Tanya because he was too weak. Realizing that the difficulty of using his power isn't his only issue, he decides to restart his training from scratch, just like his old days in the Forest of Roots. The next day, Finn gathers the group to announce the mission's start and orders everyone to stay sharp and safe. Tanya snorts that it's obvious since they only work for money. Meanwhile, Finn wonders why he drank so much hot soup in the morning, dreading that the day will be incredibly tough because he's feeling so weak. Helmut reflects that the other guy is looking down on him just because he stumbled once, but he's confident he can handle this. Then, a young man pats Helmut's shoulder, telling him to chill out, saying that since it is his first mission, there is no need to take everything so seriously. Helmut just nods, leaving the young man feeling awkward and laughing to himself. The squad finally catches up to Miles, who welcomes them and warns that the cargo is with them, telling them to guard the rear. But a loud voice interrupts and steals their spot. The newcomers belong to the rival Terex squad, and soon one of their members snaps when he realizes someone is staring at him. Finn flares up as well, but the rival squad member mocks him, calling him a little girl who should hide behind their guard. Helmut quietly reflects on the bitter rivalry between the squads, comparing their combat strengths. He realizes humans are just like demonic beasts. He figures the guy who spoke must lead their group, even though he looks incredibly weak, and resolves to keep an eye on him once the mission ends. Days later, that very same jerk from the Tarek squad trips Finn during a break. The boy complains that he does this constantly, but the bully claims it was a total accident, daring Finn to hit him if he has a problem. Finn trembles with fear and Helmut steps in to help, but the aggressor mocks him instead, saying he looks like a girl and promising to buy him flowers next time. The protagonist just stares, turning to his ally, telling him they need to go. As he turns his back, the bully snaps, furious at being ignored since the mission started. Feeling deeply humiliated in front of everyone, the Tarek squad leader boasts Helmut is only a rank 4 while he is level 3, and even with a hurt hand, he can easily handle those guys. A subordinate tries to hold him back, but the leader grabs him by the throat, thinking that all of this is his brother's fault, a punishment for being completely looked down on as a level 2. He barks that the protagonist has annoyed him since the very first day, and that cold indifference makes him want to kill him. Then, the leader tosses his subordinate aside, warning his crew they need to help teach the kid a lesson. Later, Finn chucks a stone aside, furious about he'd been taunted for 3 days straight. He wondered why Caleb was even here, being a rank 3 among rank 4s. Seeing everyone so anxious made the other mercenaries look like a total joke. Grabbing a bucket, Finn warned them he was going to get water, determined not to hold back if they dared to mock him again. Meanwhile, Helmut just stood there with his back turned, lost in thought. Approaching the lake, Finn complained about how hard it was to fetch water and how exhausted he felt, wanting to just crash. Despite the extreme danger of resting in a forest crawling with demonic beasts, he wondered when he'd finally be strong enough to fight like a rank 3. That's when Caleb and his crew approached him, laughing, mocking his pathetic daydream. The group of thugs beat Finn up, sneeringly asking if he'd already bathed with Helmut. The boy shot back that they had filthy minds, insisting that Helmut was definitely a guy, but Caleb claimed he wasn't convinced, suggesting they strip him to check, then revealed he'd already sent someone to drag the quiet warrior over. Sure enough, a mercenary soon arrived with Helmut. Helmut realized he had seen this coming, knowing that Even vicious beasts fight to establish their dominance, and on this single point, humans and beasts are exactly the same. He wondered if these thugs were the exact people Darian warned him about. Caleb then suggested they strip Helmut's clothes, and the gang closed in. Helmut knew he was nearly healed but still couldn't channel his vis, leaving him slightly on edge. Still, he knew he had to keep his guard up, just like he did during the deadly duel against Naho. If Finn's info was right, these guys were rank 4s and weaker than Tanya. His plan was to play defense first, target the weakest link, and use Darian's lethal swordsmanship only if things got truly desperate. The thugs lunged at the young warrior, but one was instantly slammed back, spitting out a bloody tooth. The rest froze in shock. Suddenly, Tanya stepped in, demanding to know what the hell was happening. Both Caleb and Helmut were stunned by her appearance. She demanded to know what the Tarek squad planned to do to her recruits. Caleb played dumb, claiming it was just friendly banter, but Tanya warned she already knew they tried to strip the kid naked. Caleb smirked, arguing that's how men built bonds, claiming she wouldn't understand. The fierce woman told him to start using his brain before ordering Helmut to grab Finn. Caleb tried to act tough, boasting that he was a rank 3 mercenary, but she instantly fired back, telling him that status was officially gone. Gritting his teeth, he listened as she warned them not to cause another scene, unless they wanted things to end very bloodily next time, ordering them to beat it. Caleb begrudgingly told his squad to retreat, and they scurried away. Finn weakly called out to Tanya, but she barked at him to stop crying. Insisting this stuff happens, she told them to grab the water and head back. The vice leader sighed, thinking her rookies were completely hopeless. She recalled there was an unspoken rule never to interfere in rank 4 disputes, but they helped enough so the boys shouldn't feel down. That night, Helmut trained his swordsmanship entirely alone in the dark, swinging his heavy blade upward with precise focus, splitting several trees. He wondered if this training was enough for today. Ever since the mission began, he had focused entirely on healing for a solid week, and his body finally felt normal. Staring down at his own arm, he realized the real problem was that he hadn't recovered enough to use his vis. He remembered Darian's strict lessons about he wants a body like water, but since he cannot train freely, his absolute priority is to build his strength as much as possible right now. The next morning, Finn gathers the group, warning them that terrifying demonic beasts usually hunt in this area, meaning no one should step out without calling for their companions. While Finn readily agrees, Helmut quietly realizes he won't be able to train alone and hopes his vis energy returns before the dark seed strikes. Just then, his traveling companion asks if he has ever faced a demonic beast, noting he heard from Sean and Byrne that they are absolutely horrifying. Finn pretends not to be terrified, claiming he can win by studying the enemy, insisting that knowledge is true power. Helmut points out that while many beasts fit that description, others are entirely different. Finn feels a wave of relief, but wonders how his companion knows these details despite his amnesia. Helmut simply replies that he was only guessing. The day moves slowly as the group escorts the wagon. A mercenary from the Tarek squad whines about his broken flask, while his companion tells him to buy a stronger one. He snaps back, claiming that with real money, he wouldn't be taking these grueling long-distance jobs. They laugh, planning to grab a drink later. Suddenly, one of their heads is violently torn clean off. Right in front of his terrified partner, a massive, ape-like demonic beast emerges, devouring the bloody remains. Mercenaries quickly encircle the creature while it feeds. The grieving survivor, fueled by pure rage, lunges at the beast, only to be ripped apart by a single brutal blow from the laughing monster. The horrified soldiers wonder where such a nightmare came from. Finn trembles, deeply unsettled by the fearsome beast, even with a massive mercenary squad surrounding them. The monster glances toward the thick brush, nodding to glowing eyes hidden in the trees. It flings the dead mercenary high into the canopy, where smaller creatures instantly shred him to pieces. Tanya immediately realizes this is an ambush and commands everyone to get ready. The warriors draw their weapons, leaving Helmut to quietly wonder if this is their end. The vice commander barks orders for Finn and Helmut to stay near the wagon and stay back. The terrified blonde Finn tries to pull Helmut away, but Helmut knows he still cannot channel Vis, and more monsters lurk nearby. He realizes that if their defense collapses, they will all die. Finn snaps, demanding to know why Helmut is standing there, urging him to get into the carriage already, cursing their terrible luck. Meanwhile, Helmut silently assesses that the hulking beast is not quite as monstrous as Alaga or Naho, but it is still highly dangerous, since only level 2 mercenaries can wield Vis energy. Helmut remains completely powerless to help at the moment. The mercenaries lock eyes with the beast as it screeches, releasing shocking pressure. Fiend charges forward beside the other level 2 warriors, channeling intense Vis into his blade. Vaulting forward, he clashes directly with the monster's claw, forcing it backward, landing smoothly after a mid-air spin. The mercenaries cheer at Fiend's talent, but the smaller pests quickly swarm. The warrior yells that they are nothing to him, easily cutting the monsters down. Catching his breath, Fiend shouts that he will keep up the momentum, while another level 2 mercenary warns Max that they must strike the beast the instant an opening presents itself. Together, the trio launches their assault as Fiend leaps, channeling Vis pours all his strength into keeping the beast from blocking their strikes, clearing a path for his companions. Together, their combined onslaught sends the monster shrieking in agony, prompting Tanya to cheer in victory. Helmut observes the chaos with confusion, quietly realizing that these humans are far stronger than he thought. The rank 2 mercenaries clearly know how to weaponize Vis to keep the boss occupied, letting the others handle the rest of the job. Helmut remembers Darian's old warnings about never underestimating human strength. Slumped on its knees, the beast begins howling toward the sky. The blue-haired mercenary notes that they only need to handle the smaller targets, while Fion insists he can keep fighting. Max grumbles about their exhaustion, urging the group to wrap this up immediately. Suddenly, the beast crouches low, springs toward a nearby tree, and uses a branch to launch itself away. The annoyed mercenaries yell that it's slipping right through their fingers. Tanya suggests a chase, but Fion barks orders to let it go, prioritizing their escort mission above all. The team shifts focus to treating their injured, as one woman checks on her allies and calls for survivors to show themselves. Finn whimpers and begs Helmut to pull him free, since his legs are pinned under heavy debris. Soon after, Tanya commends their solid performance, saying they will clean up the corpses after inspecting the cargo. Helmut questions this priority, but Marrows explains a seed of darkness fetches a massive price. Holding up a glittering fragment, Helmut realizes he has never seen such a strange darkness crystal, while the others continue their chatter. Finn then explains how this sinister seed corrupts human minds, transforming them into bloodthirsty beasts. Victims of this curse are usually killed at birth or abandoned the forest of roots to struggle for survival. He warns they must stay alert, as transformations can happen instantly. Helmut secretly wonders if everyone shares this prejudice, recalling Darian's old warning. He fears he might also turn into a monster just to survive. He remembers that the whole reason Darian trained him in Vis was to keep his inner seed completely sealed. Once his powers fully awakened, he had to conceal them to blend in safely, since exposing his true strength would be deadly. Fine. And Tanya quietly observed the 2 rookies interacting. The veteran leader jokes that their antics remind him of his own younger days, while his partner remarks that although he has matured since that tragic incident, he still has a long way to go. Meanwhile, Finn mutters that the beast's corpse looks bizarre up close. Helmut senses an immediate threat and warns his friend to back away. Finn just laughs it off, teasing Helmut for being terrified of a dead monster, calling it mere cooking ingredients. Instantly, the corpse springs up and grabs Finn's neck. Tanya screams a warning, but Helmut is already moving, drawing his blade to decapitate the monster in one clean stroke. Finn falls back, gasping in sheer terror, thanking Helmut for saving his life. Helmut silently reflects on how different that strike felt from all his years of training. Something changed in his body. Sean jokes that Helmut seems different from Finn since his duel with Tanya. The young warrior thanks him, promising to serve extra soup, while Tanya watches suspiciously from afar, wondering if she misjudged Helmut's swift sword draw infused with Vis. Later, the swordsman trains deep in the forest, unleashing his energy, opening his eyes. He is certain his power returned because he swung his sword. Instinctively, he believes he can fully recover his dormant energy with just a bit more focus. Meanwhile, Finn searches for Helmut as the group plans the night watch schedule. Finn assigns the guards in pairs for 3 shifts, pairing Helmut with Tanya, Finn with Marrows, and Sean with Burn. Last, the other mercenaries tease Udor for getting hurt and shirking duty, and Finn wishes everyone good night. Meanwhile, Helmut reflects that With his vis, he can sense the beast that fled earlier. Tanya asks if the young man is all right, reminding him of tomorrow's long journey, and instructs him to wake the next pair of guards at the end of their shift. Helmut nods, well aware that the demonic beasts are waiting for everyone to fall asleep. He decides to use this quiet time to recover. On his way to the forest, he passes Caleb, who bursts into a maniacal laugh, claiming this is his golden opportunity. Deep in the woods, Helmut swings his sword and notes that his condition is much better, confident that he will be fully restored by morning. Suddenly, someone approaches, but Helmut senses that the newcomer carries no demonic energy. Caleb steps out, calling to the boy and warns him against wandering alone, challenging the young swordsman to a duel. Helmut rejects the offer without interest, but Caleb claims the boy doesn't understand his situation, warning him that Tanya won't protect him tonight. He accuses Helmut of arrogance, promising to beat this bad habit out of him, even if he must break his arms and legs, declaring that people only grow by taking beatings. And if the rookie ends up dead, it is simply because he was weak. Helmut asks if Caleb is prepared to face the consequences of his arrogance. 2. The mercenary's shock. The young swordsman calmly notes that Caleb differs from the other fighters, resembling the wild beasts instead, and if he is actually human, he should behave like a rank 4 mercenary. Caleb laughs at this remark, shattering the cast on his arm, shouting that he will teach him respect, and lunges with a heavy fist to teach the kid a lesson. Helmut catches Caleb's arm, applies crushing pressure, and slams the mercenary into the dirt. The dazed fighter asks what trick he used, while the young man mutters that the brute behaves just like a demonic beast, but with uglier eyes. He warns that if Caleb wants to set a hierarchy, he should pick his battles more wisely, commanding him to learn his place. Caleb stumbles backward, refusing to accept defeat, and unsheathes his sword to strike, but Helmut easily parries the desperate lunge. Their steel blades clash repeatedly until terror finally grips the mercenary. The young swordsman then channels vis into his blade, surges forward, and strikes the mercenary's leg, sending him crashing down in agony. Helmut realizes that he hadn't planned on using vis and got carried away, but realizes he'd be fine. He would be exposed if he let the man escape. Standing before Caleb, a dark voice whispers in his mind, urging him to end his opponent's life and trying to take total control of his thoughts. Helmut fights to suppress the wild energy in his chest, recalling the seed of darkness and wondering if this nightmare is because of the vis that recently awakened. For a second, he fears he will transform into a demon, but quickly calms his thoughts, remembering he is Helmut, not some rabid beast. Once he regains his senses, he realizes Caleb has fled. The desperate mercenary crawls through the dark woods, muttering that no kid could be stronger than his own leader, desperate to run faster to survive, until a wild beast lunges directly at him. Deep in the woods, Helmut catches a strange sound and instantly recognizes the same monster from before, staring back at him coldly. Helmut steps up to grab the beast's attention, asserting that the fleeing man was his prey. The creature growls, stepping closer, but Helmut knows this isn't like their first encounter. This time, he can win. Channeling his vis straight into his blade, he unleashes a heavy pressure, forcing the terrified creature to retreat with a sharp shriek. He wonders if the beast can sense his overwhelming power, proving it is no ordinary animal. He commands the beast to leave the man behind and get lost unless it wants to die right here. The monster hesitates for a few moments, lets out a frustrated growl, and leaps away. Helmut knows letting it go was a waste, and the beast will surely return. But his immediate problem is figuring out how to explain this entire mess. Later, Max recaps the grim news, confirming Caleb did not make it, and the young warrior agrees, explaining how the guy followed and harassed him, but ultimately fell prey to a demonic beast. Hearing this, Caleb's brother buries his face in his hands, while Max remarks that Caleb brought this on himself by being obnoxious, offering a hollow apology. Tanya snaps that the Tarek mercenaries only offered a cheap verbal apology, even though their own ally almost died, accusing them of turning a blind eye to Caleb's recklessness. Paul warns her to watch her mouth since they are talking about his brother, but Tanya fires back that this never would have happened if they had kept an eye on him. Paul flares up, asking if she dares to insult both his brother and his squad, but Mr. Miles shuts down the argument, declaring that is enough. He warns everyone to stay calm so they do not ruin their plans. Noting that while the Tarek squad is clearly responsible for this mess, the face squad must watch their tone. He adds they shouldn't dwell on the dead but reminds them to hand over Helmut's hard-earned commission. Tanya reluctantly agrees and Paul mutters for Miles to handle it. The old man senses the heavy tension, warning that they must handle the monster threat. Together, advising extreme caution now that 3 lives have already been lost. Tanya suddenly smacks the young warrior hard on the head, and he rubs it, complaining about the sting. She snaps that pain is the point, since he could have died out there wandering alone instead of keeping watch. Helmut quietly accepts her point about being careful, while Tanya she admits she panicked when he vanished, demanding he pay closer attention. Forbidding him from ever wandering off alone, Helmut quietly reflects on that strange sensation, feeling a coldness that somehow warms his body, and apologizes. Tanya warns him to stay alert, and the young swordsman nods. Taking her words to heart, the next morning Fien warns the squad to stay alert and move through the woods quickly to prevent any further deaths. The mercenaries roar in agreement and spend the entire day fighting off relentless beasts, more monsters. Surround them, drawing frustrated curses from the exhausted soldiers who claim the beasts are endless. They might have to fight for 2 straight days. Fien curses their terrible luck, wondering why their specific unit is being targeted. Meanwhile, Helmut quietly notices a powerful trace of demonic energy nearby. He realizes the boss beast is keeping its distance, trying to bait them by sending small waves of monsters first. This isn't the real attack just yet. By nightfall, the battered and exhausted soldiers rest and talk about the long journey. Sean teases other for getting injured again, earning a sharp retort. And the lighthearted banter continues under Fien's watchful eye. Tanya admits she never expected to be ambushed day and night without a single break. Their leader notes that thankfully nobody is critically wounded, and the rookies are holding their own. He adds that Helmut knows his way around a blade and can easily protect Fien, who is quick on his feet. Tanya tries to bring up a strange sight from earlier, but the leader cuts her off, noting that the monsters are hyper-focused on their squad, while the other group barely lifted a finger today. Tanya reminds him that lives have already been lost, and due to past bad blood, they must stay on high alert. They cannot rely on anyone else for help. Fien agrees, swearing to ensure every single person makes it out alive. Later that night, Miles whispers to Paul that the boss monster is calculating, directing its horde strictly toward the other unit. He suggests grouping up for safety, but Paul immediately refuses. For him, survival is a numbers game, arguing that sticking together only drags them down. He proposes using the other squad as a distraction to escape the woods. Miles is outraged, accusing the Tarek squad of being completely heartless, but Paul counters that morality is a luxury they cannot afford right now. He warns that these monsters are systematically wearing them down to kill them all, pointing out that honor means absolutely nothing if they all end up dead. Paul dares Miles to step up and make a better call. By morning, Tanya notes that the endless skirmishes show no signs of stopping, draining the energy of both men and beasts. She observes the other team keeping their distance, offering zero assistance. Fien agrees with her grim outlook, dreading what will happen when the boss monster finally shows itself. Suddenly, Paul's unit suddenly accelerates, leaving their allies in the dust. Tanya watches in confusion, while Fien commands everyone to halt, realizing they have been set up as bait to cover the other group's escape. Betrayed, Fien's blood begins to boil. Helmut calmly notes they cannot catch them now, and the monsters have already closed in. An ambush is already set up. He laments that the other group chose to use their own allies as bait to survive, wondering how many will actually survive if he steps in. Fien screams for everyone to get ready as the monsters close in. The mercenaries fight desperately for survival, and Helmut worries that showing his true strength might blow his cover. But hearing his comrades try to stay positive, even when facing death, Helmut reflects on his past and who he is, concluding that those secrets matter anymore if he wants to live like a human. He decides he won't let these people die, choosing to put his faith in humanity, just as Darian once told him to, warning his allies to keep this quiet. Helmut unleashes his vis, leaving the entire squad completely stunned. The young warrior charges forward, leaping high with a massive spin of his blade, tearing through every monster in sight. While the squad wonders if they are dreaming, Helmut keeps Delivering relentless, devastating strikes, a calm smile on his face, he moves so fast that the monsters can't even react, cleanly decapitating a beast that tries to charge, then smoothly sheathes his sword. The mercenaries stand there, utterly dumbfounded by the miracle they just witnessed, while Helmut notices that the ape-like demonic beast fled the moment it saw its pack get slaughtered. Fien asks how Helmut pulled off such a feat, but the boy simply claims his body healed itself, leaving his comrades in absolute disbelief. Meanwhile, Tanya realizes she was right about what she saw. Fien admits that even as a rank 2 mercenary, he cannot manifest this, making Helmut's young age all the more impressive. When they ask him where he learned that swordsmanship, Helmut knows that although the group is trustworthy, it is best not to mention the forest of roots. Instead, he claims he lived with a mentor, but remembers nothing else, prompting the leader to curse the boy's memory loss. Soon, the boy steps forward to ask about their next move, as the area seems completely safe now. Fien replies that they need to leave the forest first, then hunt down the cowards who abandoned them. As for Helmut, he admits he has no idea where to go next, but will stick with them for now. Fien grumbles at the vague response, but Tanya tells him to shut up. The leader then barks orders for them to move out and hunt down the traitors. Along the way, the mercenaries note how quickly Helmut's body is recovering. Meanwhile, Tanya places her hand on the earth to track their path, confirming they are heading in the right direction. However, the eerie silence suggests the others fled during the night and have likely escaped the forest. Fien notes that, per their original plan, they will stop at the first village after the woods where they expect to corner Terex's group. Marrow vows that he will get his revenge, receiving angry nods of agreement from his comrades. Fien admits the payout is solid, but still questions the details of their contract since the traders took everything valuable, leaving them only a single food carriage. Suddenly, Helmut catches a strange sound and steps ahead. Ignoring Finn's confusion, Tanya asks if he senses something. Since no other mercenary noticed a thing, she looks to the protagonist. He explains that concentrated demonic energy is surging, and the Terex squad is locked in battle. Marrow laughs at the traitors who abandoned them. Wondering how far off the fight is, Helmut says at their current pace, they are an hour away and the enemy leader is already there. Fiend doubts Helmut's level, shocked he can sense something from this immense distance. But Helmut warns they can cut that down if they hurry. Terex should be able to hold out until they arrive. Still, the mercenaries complain about fighting a demonic monkey to save backstabbers, but Fiend reminds them they are professionals, and finishing the mission comes before any grudge. The squad decides they will handle the job first, before dealing with those bastards. Tanya proudly adds that they are the Face Squad, who act differently from selfish idiots. With that, they begin a rapid march to guarantee the client's safety. Meanwhile, the Tarek mercenary squad is struggling against the beasts. Paul orders his men to hold the right and fend off the weaker creatures. He slashes a monster, cursing his luck. Realizing only a single day has passed since they started, suddenly, massive demonic monkey appears right behind Paul. He realizes the obstacles are piling up. He never expected these monsters to be so relentless, wondering if they were not satisfied with simply wiping out the Face Squad. Beast slams the earth, but Paul manages to roll away at the last second. Terrified for his life, he decides to flee, retreating toward Max, who is still holding off the horde. Paul warns his ally that they will die if they stay there. They cannot defeat the leader, even if they kill the minions, Paul argues, claiming that running now will save their lives and preserve their name. Max agrees and commands all his subordinates to scatter, leaving the men stunned as the two leaders leap away to escape. Lord Miles watches the betrayal from inside his shaking carriage, crying out to the heavens. He deeply regrets trusting the Tarek squad, realizing he made a fatal mistake and should have expected this ruin after abandoning the other mercenaries. The giant monkey screeches loudly, reaching its massive hand toward the carriage. Miles shakes with terror as the beast snatches him up alongside. Another hooded man, weeping as death, stares them in the face. Just as the creature opens its jaws to devour them, Helmut charges in, sword drawn. Wrapped in glowing vis, commanding the beast to release them, the protagonists. Blade slices deep into the monster's shoulder, forcing the beast back. Helmut demands again that it drop the hostages. The creature roars in pain, tossing Miles' body straight at the youth, who safely catches him. Midair, Helmut recalls Fiend ordering him to rush ahead and secure the area, deeply worried the Tarek group would stab them in the back once. Again, setting Miles safely on the ground, Helmut realizes Fiend was entirely correct. The clients would be dead if he had delayed, facing the beast. He declares his vis is restored, preparing to clash as he charges forward. He pours everything into a spinning slash, striking the demonic monkey. Next, the minions start moving, forcing Helmut to shift focus and unleash. A flurry of slashes, he cleaves the monkeys, making their leader scream incredibly loud. To the heavens, the boy realizes this is the strongest demonic beast he has ever encountered outside the forest, but knows he can still win if he does not let down. His guard, the beast keeps roaring, but Helmut rushes forward with his blade and severs its finger. He thrusts forward, and though the beast manages to block, the protagonist exerts more raw power, inflicting intense pain on the monster. The creature releases even more energy. Helmut retreats, noticing that the demonic power has surged, wondering if the beast is absorbing it from his surroundings, knowing that the Face mercenary group will arrive shortly and walk into danger if they try to help. He decides he must get serious in this fight to end it quickly. Meanwhile, the monster finishes, gathering its power and throws a punch, but Helmut dodges and swings his sword. In a slash that wounds the beast, the monster groans while the boy reflects that holding back ordinary strength is useless, so he channels more vis into his blade to strike again. The monkey charges, wildly swinging its claw to block the slash. Helmut notices his foe is accelerating and steps back, observing its newly mutated claws. He feels the battle is getting irritating since he cannot finish it with one blow. The monster roars and launches a rapid barrage of heavy strikes. Helmut notes the beast did not even spare his outfit, meaning he must purchase replacement clothes in town. The creature shrieks again, drawing even more surrounding energy to trigger a huge explosion around its face, while a glowing green seed takes control of its head. Helmut watches the transformation, realizing the monster ultimately devours other beasts. The creature slams its paw to the ground and leaps at him, noting that the attack pattern matches what he has seen. Protagonist smiles, recalling Naho. He swings his blade and warns the beast it will always remain weaker than him, despite absorbing all demonic energy. He leaps at the creature, delivering an upward slash, defeating the beast. Right after, the Face mercenary group arrives, looking at Helmut and the monster carcasses. Finn asks what happened, while his captain wonders if the boy defeated them completely alone. The protagonist confirms he did. Fien notes that the beasts were sent to the afterlife swiftly because their ranks broke, indicating their captain abandoned them. Tanya adds they were abandoned by someone lacking responsibility or loyalty until they spot the surviving Master Miles. Fiend says they are lucky to find at least one client alive, urging them to leave the demonic zone after searching for survivors. Fiend calls to Miles, who wakes up startled and begins begging for mercy, explaining that he abandoned the group because Paul threatened him. The leader cuts him off, telling him to pull himself together since he is not dead yet. Miles wonders how he survived and where the beast went. Fiend answers that they defeated it, telling him to forget about what happened for now while reminding him to keep quiet. Miles thanks them deeply. He saved the old man's life, but business is business. Clutching the contract, the elder asks about the steep 80% fee. Fiend replies that their massive losses justify the price, and he should be grateful to even be alive after being betrayed. Miles desperately tries to negotiate for 70%, arguing it is only fair to compensate the families of those who died, but Fiend shuts him down instantly. He declares this is his trade. If the elder refuses, they will just leave him stranded in the dangerous woods. Shaking with terror, the old merchant finally yields and accepts the steep 80%. Fiend snatches the signed contract to finalize it, then asks what valuable cargo was worth risking their lives for. Miles hesitates, fearing a deadly leak, but Fiend reassures him. The old merchant then warns of a terrifying, imminent threat. Fiend retorts that he should have warned them sooner. After a tense silence, Miles confesses that their wealthy client is none other than the legendary Archmage Antial, a name Sean instantly recognizes. Fiend deduces the mage avoided the swordsman territory because he simply could not use their family route. The old merchant explains they were delivering highly restricted cargo to a sacred place forbidden to mages, the Temple of Lumen. were legendary heroes sealed away the Demon King 1,000 years ago. While sworn to protect humanity, they now demand dark sacrifices to maintain power. Their absolute authority forces entire kingdoms to bow to their every command. Unable to bend the mighty Antial to their will, they seek to capture him. During their feud, the mage stole a temple artifact for research. If they find out the Bhutan Merchant Association smuggled it, they will all face total ruin. Miles shakes with terror, warning that anyone remotely connected will be executed. He only risked this run because the legendary mage once saved his life. Intrigued, Helmut asks if this magic user is truly that renowned. Sean nods. He explains that years ago, Antial nearly leveled the capital while trying to disrupt the sacred barrier that repels beasts and keeps monsters from entering. While detecting a mage's presence, the temple quickly buried the scandal. Helmut ponders this immense power, wondering if such magic could purge the corrupting seed inside him, especially since holy magic failed and the dark mage he fought was too weak. As night falls, the party prepares to camp at the edge of the monster realm to await their meeting. Fian pulls Helmut aside for a private chat and hands him a seed used by swordsmen to restore vis. Swallowing it, Helmut instantly feels his body heat up, verifying its incredible potency. The mercenary leader explains this token is a heartfelt thanks for saving the entire squad's lives. Fian promises that if Helmut ever needs aid while searching for his lost memories, his mercenary group will gladly rush to his aid. Helmut extends his hand, calling them true companions whom he fully trusts, prompting the leader to smile and nod. The following morning, the party reaches the designated map location only to find a completely deserted road. Miles explains they must haul the items directly to Antial's estate. To prove this, he holds a necklace near a massive tree, which immediately radiates pure mana. Tanya flinches at the sudden magic while Fian realizes they are warping space, a feat fit for an archmage. Helmut suspects a clever illusion, but the leader notes the plummeting temperature. The biting temperature proved their long journey. Just then, Tanya spotted someone ahead. Antial stepped forward, welcoming the weary merchants from the Bhutan Association. While examining the cargo, the mage confirmed the delivery but sensed something off. He questioned their shrunken numbers and the strange lingering life force on their carriage. Miles confirmed their heavy casualties and offered to sell the harvested demon corpse. Antial agreed, bringing the total payout to 150,000 marks. Stunned by the massive fortune, the mercenaries whispered about how incredibly wealthy archmages were. Meanwhile, the archmage ordered his assistants to unload the cargo and clear the carriage. Helmut watched Antial closely, sensing immense, refined strength radiating from the old man. His power differed from Urugo, completely masking his mana before turning his eyes to Helmut. Fascinating, the archmage murmured. Mages occasionally glimpse the ultimate truth hidden inside others. Feeling exposed, Helmut flatly warned the mage not to say another word. Antial chuckled, asking if the young boy wished to keep his secrets guarded. He lightly tapped his staff, reminding Helmut that mages are keepers of world secrets. He claimed that mages protect world secrets while deeply respecting the ultimate truth. He explained that this barrier completely separated them from the outside world. Whatever Helmut feared would remain safe here, a promise the archmage swore upon his name. Seeing glowing chains appear, Helmut questioned them, only for Antial to call it a binding oath. If broken, the archmage would lose half his power, so he urged Helmut to speak freely. Helmut realized this man was far from normal, and nothing like anyone he met in Urugo. Deciding to trust him, the boy admitted he indeed had a pressing question. Antial cut straight to the point, asking if it was about the seed in his heart. Helmut nodded, confirming his ultimate goal was to figure out how to extract it. But Antial shook his head, warning him that extraction was an absolute impossibility. The demonic seed was bound to his very life, sustaining him through the darkest depths. It kept him alive, meaning the dark core was now practically his second heart. Removing it meant instant death. Still, Helmut sensed the archmage held some kind of answer. Antial scoffed, reminding the boy he was merely a mortal mage, not a god. Frankly, it was his very first time encountering a human capable of controlling the seed. Helmut pressed for answers, and the archmage explained that the seed usually drove hosts mad. It relentlessly flooded minds with corrupting energy, making Helmut an incredibly rare anomaly. He actively suppressed the corruption using mana and vis, a feat requiring astronomical talent. Even before that, the seed launched mental assaults, yet the boy endured without breaking. The Archmage found it miraculous that the Holy Temple had not executed him yet. Helmut quietly realized the mage had no idea he came from the dreaded forest. Safe from the forest of roots, he wondered if he should feel relieved or worried. Antial warned that even Lumen high priests would fail to detect the seed. Unless they performed a direct soul examination, his secret remained safe from holy eyes. The Archmage only noticed it because the seed flared up around active demonic energy. Helmut made a mental note to avoid cursed lands at all costs. But Antial grimly warned that a dark, chaotic path lay ahead for the boy. Though his strength would multiply, every past host of the seed became a monster. Ultimately, the creeping rot would consume his mind, driving him to endless violence. He would swing a world-shattering blade, fulfilling the tragic fate shared by all hosts. Helmut coldly replied that it would never happen because human, the mage agrees, saying that humans can face their fate and change it. Antil adds that he will watch the boy closely in case he breaks, planning to stop him. Helmut remains silent. The mage finishes by saying if the boy reaches a level far beyond his own, even the darkness inside him will bow to his will. Afterward, Fian hands a bag to Helmut, explaining it is his reward. Well, 3/4 of it, he wanted to offer even more. But the other mercenaries worked hard too and need their share. Next, he pulls something else from the carriage, handing over Darian's personal bag, explaining he found it with the deceased. Helmut recognizes the items he brought from the forest of roots, which he believed were lost. Fian insists there is no need to thank him, admitting he should have delivered it sooner, but he views Helmut as their savior and will pray for his safety on the road ahead. Suddenly, Finn shouts to his friend that the quest has finally arrived. Now they can show their strength, but Helmut says he won't be going to the mercenary headquarters with them, leaving the boy deeply saddened. Tanya tells Finn to pipe down, saying Helmut can keep his mercenary license if he wishes. The young warrior replies that this is already more than enough. Tanya notes he clearly has urgent things to do. Things far more important than mere memories. Helmut simply nods, so Tanya admits she was worrying over nothing, but bids him to take care. The young warrior offers his sincere thanks to the entire group. Other mercenaries wish him a safe journey, while a tearful Finn begs him to promise to return. Helmut merely calls the boy's name and says his food is delicious. Tanya tells the boy to stop crying, since Helmut isn't dying, and Fian calls the boy over. The leader says that if Helmut ever needs his squad, he can always return. Helmut turns to leave, accepting the offer with a slightly heavy heart, feeling the same ache as when Darian left or when he said goodbye to Alaga. If he continues his mercenary work, he knows he will encounter demonic beasts, and the dark seed will absorb their energy. He must avoid those deep woods to keep from being consumed by it. But he dreads Antial's dark prediction coming true, since his work involves these beasts. His only choice is to grow so powerful that the seed of darkness can no longer control him. Meanwhile, back in the city, Paul tells Max he never would have taken the mission or brought Caleb along had he known the dangers. Max says they survived, so they can rebuild Tarek and stay positive, since the Face organization is completely destroyed. He adds that what happened to Caleb was just bad luck, and they must recruit new talent, but suddenly spots the Face mercenaries walking happily outside. Max wonders how they survived and orders everyone to hide inside the restaurant. Finn notices something outside but spots no one. When he looks closer, Tanya asks what is wrong, and the boy says it is nothing. Hiding and panting, the mercenaries grumble that they are completely ruined. Max is convinced those demonic beasts had some massive weakness that let Face defeat them, and he is certain their actions have already been reported, marking the end of their lives. Paul agrees with this grim reality and, since they are still only rank 2, suggests they follow him to get some food. At a local tavern, Helmut quietly watches a drunkard brag about ending a colleague's life with just one punch. The young warrior feels completely lost because he cannot stay with the mercenary band due to the seed, and must find a clue about the mysterious necklace. Wandering aimlessly from village to village, he knows he cannot keep this up forever. The world is massive, and he will not only run into decent people. Remembering the small fortune Fian gave him, Helmut decides to check his funds, realizing he has currency from both Darian and Fian. After Confirming he actually made a small fortune, he discovers a letter, wondering who sent it. Inside, Darian explains that his own life will likely have ended. By the time Helmut reads this, but he rejoices that his student successfully escaped that deadly forest. Darian writes that Helmut must be having a tough time adapting due to his unique upbringing, and guides him to head toward Balden if he lacks direction. There sits the famous Greta Academy where young minds study, a sanctuary where nobles and commoners are treated equally. Nobody cares about a person's past if getting admitted proves too difficult alone. He should seek out Ethan Kudrow and present his gifted sword. Darian concludes by urging his disciple to stay alert against the world's dangers, expressing total confidence that he will pass this trial, observing the unsteady penmanship. Helmut realizes his old mentor barely had the strength to write, and tucks the paper away with gratitude, feeling a new path opening. The server steps up with his meal and asks for 15 marks. Helmut hands him 1,000 mark coin, leaving the worker completely stunned. The youth explains he wants to stay overnight and will cover all expenses with that single coin, which the servant quickly accepts. Helmut calculates that he earned 90,000 marks from his last quest, making it highly profitable, deciding to make this tavern his base for now. The drunkard across the room spins around, calling the young man loaded, and after they lock eyes, demands a 20,000 mark loan. Helmut flatly refuses, silently questioning the bizarre nature of these humans. Enraged, the brute slams his fist onto the wood, throwing a wild punch at the boy, who effortlessly blocks the strike and asks if he is deaf. Recognizing the kid's immense power, one of the drunkards goons charges forward to strike, but Helmut slips the punch and hits him in the face, sending the thug crashing backward. The drunkard demands his name, and our mercenary introduces himself simply, kicking the heavy table straight into his challenger. Helmut snatches his gold bag midair and warns them to leave his sight. Without causing further trouble, the troublemaker groans on the floor but vows that this brat will pay dearly, ordering his crew out while telling him to sleep with one eye open. As they flee, Helmut muses that these people behave exactly like Caleb. The server approaches the young man, urging him to flee the area swiftly because of the Black Eagles. Helmut calmly asks what they are, and the worker explains they are dealing with a ruthless gang of hired thugs. Helmut realizes this is shaping up to be a massive headache. He figures it is probably best to just settle this now. But he wants to keep his room clean, so he lures them away. The waiter panics, warning him that those killers are already close. He tries giving the money back, but the boy asks a simple question. If those thugs show up looking for him, just point them toward the woods. Tell them to head there. Helmut casually tells the staff to keep his bed ready and walks out. The worried waiter tries to stop him. Outside, the thugs are waiting. One lackey hesitates, but the furious boss refuses to let this slide. That brat disrespected him, and his pride is on the line. The underling warns that the target looks like a tough mercenary, but the drunk leader laughs him off, calling the boy a coward. They march forward until a scout yells with an update. He found the kid. The boss demands to know the details. The scout reports that the target fled straight into the woods. He probably thought escaping the city would keep him safe. The leader snickers, thinking the kid just made a fatal mistake. One tracker boasts that he knows these woods like his backyard. They are eager to teach this clueless brat a brutal lesson. Deep in the forest, Helmut calmly rolls out his sleeping bag and waits. His mind drifts back to his old squad, remembering key lessons. Some people act like wild beasts, while others risk everything to protect. You and I can see he finds humanity far more complicated now. He recalls Darian's warning, raw strength can't solve every problem. Yet right now, he has no idea how else to handle this. Sensing his targets nearby, his foot lashes out with blinding speed. After wiping them out effortlessly, he doubts their supposed fearsome reputation. Were they really Black Eagles? They went down far too easily. Leaping through the canopy, he realizes they were weaker than Tanya. That means she belongs to the top tier of human fighters. He will have to battle more experts to gauge his own true power. Since he must travel at sunrise, he heads back to get some rest. Suddenly, the seed of darkness within his chest begins to throb violently. He crashes blindly into a trunk and collapses onto the cold dirt. This makes no sense. He avoided demonic energy completely. Killing beasts in the wild had never triggered a reaction like this. Then the grim truth hits him. The difference is simple. These victims were human. Slaughtering them feeds the dark seed inside. You and I can see his terror. If anyone uncovers this, he is finished. He was a fool to fight humans so recklessly. If he cannot take their lives, he must avoid human conflict entirely. This vital realization means he needs to reach Baden immediately. Meanwhile, inside a dark tavern, a mysterious figure hears that his entire squad has been wiped out. The informant warns that continuing the pursuit will expose their hidden location. Anton, the boss, refuses to let this slide and demands they proceed. He orders the operation to move forward. Just then, a knock rattles the door. Another masked lackey enters to alert Anton that their guests have arrived. As two men step inside, Anton admits he never expected to host them. He welcomes Paul and Max, noting how rare it is to find rank 2 mercenaries. While talent is scarce, he warns they are currently facing a critical crossroads. They cannot recruit just anyone without setting a few strict conditions first. Paul asks what he means by that, but Anton quickly reassures him. Their operations are vastly different from the standard mercenary guild's usual jobs. They dive deep into the underworld, dealing in strictly illegal activities, because if a recruit lets a moral compass ruin a job, it creates massive problems. Paul stays quiet, his eyes locking onto a doll stabbed with sharp knives. Anton explains he needs proof of their loyalty and has a perfect test. Max realizes the client wants to see if they truly fit the group. Anton nods in agreement, confirming that is exactly what he wants. He promises the mission is simple enough for capable rank 2 fighters. 5 of his men vanished last night, and their bodies were just discovered. He reveals that the elite squad was taken down in an instant. With a single strike and no weapon wounds, Max asks for details. Anton describes the target as a black-haired teenager, barely 15 years old. But he wields the deadly power of a rank 3 mercenary. Max asks if their job is simply to eliminate him. Anton nods, promising them wealth and elite missions that far surpass the standard mercenary guild rewards. Paul asks where the kid is hiding. Anton shuffles through his files. He reveals the target was spotted nearby and cannot have fled very far. He drives a dagger into the map to pinpoint the location. By morning, Helmut stands outside a local guild, sighing as he prepares to request another quest. He knows it is the safest way to travel unnoticed. Stepping inside the warm, busy hall, the receptionist immediately calls out to him. She asks what brings a young boy here, and Helmut requests a mission. The girl is stunned to see a rank 3 badge at his age. He belongs to the famous Pace Guild, prompting him to ask if something is wrong. She smiles, admitting she is just amazed by his incredible talent. Helmut adds that payment is secondary, as long as the travel route leads to Boden. She notes that Boden is a massive city, creating constant demand for escorts. Finding a caravan duty will be simple. She slides a notepad toward him. Helmut asks about the paper, and she explains it is an escort job for a noble lady, offering an 800 marks reward, but requires a bodyguard who fits a very specific, handsome physical type. Helmut frowns. Confused by this strange term, he heads over to a local clothing boutique. He recalls the receptionist's advice about the absolute importance of looking sharp and wearing decent gear. She promised his striking looks would secure the job instantly. She even promised to hold the job. At the boutique, a tailor showcases a premium suit crafted by a legendary artisan. Helmut listens quietly, asking how much it. Finding out it costs 2,000 marks, he gives up. The fee is higher than the actual reward. He decides it is better to look for another mission. Back at the guild, the secretary is surprised to see him return. She praises his looks, predicting a high chance of acceptance. Very few mercenaries ever fit the lady's strict requirements. Soon after, a butler arrives, whom the receptionist identifies as a representative of the Zeringer house. The man confirms this, stepping closer to evaluate Helmut, noting the boy is tall with great posture despite his young age. Satisfied with the boy's appearance, the butler orders Helmut to follow him. Helmut looks back to see the receptionist waving happily. This makes him lower his head. Outside, an assassin watching the place observes the movement, but he runs away the moment the young mercenary walks past. On the way, the butler introduces himself as Gilton, asking if the boy knows Marquis Zeringer. Helmut says no, and Gilton comments it is better to know nothing than to know very little. He warns the boy to watch his actions and Asks about his past experiences. The boy replies that he has worked in transport before. The butler clarifies that this time he must protect a person, not an object, instructing the boy to simply follow orders if things get tough. Helmut agrees. The butler praises his posture, noting that silence is an essential virtue for an escort. They enter the mansion, which gives off a heavy rose perfume. Helmut tries to ask a question, but Gilton quickly interrupts. The butler announces the place is the young lady's villa, reminding the boy of the family's immense power. Nearby, a knight greets the butler and sizes up Helmut, asking if he is the hired mercenary. Gilton tells the knight that the young rookie is fully vetted and will not cause trouble, but still needs instructions. The knight shakes the young mercenary's hand, introducing himself as Cedric, and Helmut does the same. The butler then asks about the young lady. Cedric explains she is currently having breakfast, so they decide to go find her. In the kitchen, a girl admires the young man next to her and praises his culinary talent, admitting she wants to visit his estate, completely charmed by him. When Gilton arrives and calls out to Lady Zinnia, she asks what is happening, and the butler introduces their new bodyguard. Zinnia says she does not care, and adds that if he is good, he should handle everything because she needs to talk to Aaliyah. However, Aaliyah refuses, standing up to say he is going to rest since they are leaving soon. Zinnia is surprised, asking him to eat a bit more, but the boy walks away, passing right by Helmut. The young mercenary turns his head to look, and noticing Aaliyah's white hair, thinks there is something off about him. As Aaliyah walks through the door, Helmut realizes this strange feeling is definitely not just in his head. Zinnia stands up immediately, saying she is also going back to her room, and runs after Aaliyah. Helmut asks the butler if the boy is also a guard, but Gilton says no, explaining he is the lady's guest, a well-known student at Greta Academy whom they met by chance. Helmut asks if the lady studies at the same academy, and the butler replies she is taking the entrance exams now that she is 14, making Helmut realize that this was his own original destination. Gilton announces they have 2 hours left, telling Helmut to grab a horse from the stable for their departure and to meet at the nearest carriage right after, while also checking if Cedric needs anything. The young mercenary agrees, but the moment he mounts, the beast throws a massive fit and refuses to obey, nothing like the reliable steeds from his mercenary days. Shortly after, Xenia calls out, demanding Aaliyah join her in the same carriage, desperately trying to get his attention, but the boy just walks on calmly, raising a hand as he passes Helmut, unleashing a faint trace of strange energy. Helmut catches the sudden vibration, wondering if the kid is a mage. As they travel, Helmut realizes that bizarre sensation from earlier was definitely magic, though he has no idea why the boy cast a spell. Helmut resolves to keep a close eye on him. Inside, Xenia praises Leah's incredible magical talent, but confesses she is shivering with anxiety over the upcoming entrance exams. Aaliyah reassures her she has studied enough and will have plenty of time to review later. Still, the girl insists she needs a proper teacher, but Aaliyah points out she must adapt to the independent study expected at the academy. Xenia fake cries bitterly, lamenting how her family will punish her if she fails. Aaliyah offers to find her a professional tutor, but flatly refuses to tutor her himself, citing his own preparations for the next term and telling her to rest during this brutal journey. Meanwhile, Helmut rides closer on his horse, trying to catch their conversation, but the vicar only reminds him of Finn, far away at the Black Eagles Guild. Scout reports that Helmut took a minor job and left, meaning they can easily hunt him down if they move fast. Anton asks if the knights traveling with the target serve a noble warning of messy complications, unless they corner Helmut when he is completely isolated. Paul scoffs, calling him overly paranoid about a simple sellsword, but Anton retorts that their guild survives by eliminating threats safely. Paul and his crew agree to stick to this cautious approach, confirming they will put their deadly plan into motion immediately. As dusk settles, Xenia complains about the pathetic lodging, but Gilton reminds her it is only for a single night. The humble innkeeper welcomes them to the village house, wishing them a peaceful sleep. Outside, Helmut trains his vis energy. He is exhausted, but knows he has grown stronger since his time in the Forest of Roots, even if some invisible barrier still holds him back. He longs for a proper facility to push his physical limits and energy. Perhaps he can train more effectively once he enrolls at Greta Academy. For now, uncovering clues about the seed of darkness remains his absolute priority. Looking up into the night sky, Helmut spots something strange and assumes it is just an owl, but far away. Using enhanced sight to watch them, Aaliyah smiles at Helmut's sharp senses. He realizes he will get caught if he lingers, amazed that a teenage mercenary has already reached rank 3. Meanwhile, Xenia knocks on Aaliyah's door, begging for just a moment of his time, dramatic as ever about their last night together. Her maids desperately try to hold her back, warning her that she must sleep before 9. To protect her flawless skin, hearing the commotion, Aaliyah groans inwardly about how exhausting this whole situation is. The next day, the caravan presses onward. Stopping for a break by a lake on the road to Baden, Cedric takes the chance to wash up in the cool, clear water until lunch is announced. The maids serve an elaborate feast of meats and fresh salads at the carriage, making the knights grumble about their miserable status as they choke down dry bread and hard jerky. Helmut, missing Finn's cooking, catches an oddly sweet taste in his canteen, suspecting poison even though everyone else seems perfectly fine. Moments later, the knights grow heavy-eyed. Gilton tells young Xenia that he will finish packing so they can set off, only to find she is already fast asleep, muttering Aaliyah's name. A chilling realization hits as the maids and even Cedric suddenly collapse, sending Gilton stumbling to the dirt. Immediately after, the only survivor left standing, Helmut quickly dumps his water on the ground just as the Black Eagle mercenaries make their move. The invaders gloat over the unconscious camp, noting how messy it would have been to slay a noble without leaving a trace, but they stop dead when they spot Helmut still on his feet. Paul recognizes him as a member of the Pace Guild and demands answers about his fallen Black Eagle men. Helmut coldly states he is with the Tarek Corporation, pointing out that no evidence remained when their own leader butchered them, calling them traitors who secretly allied with the Black Eagles. Max seethes at the kid's sheer audacity, but Paul simply chuckles, telling the boy to learn his place. Before opening his mouth, the assassins lunge forward, blades bared, and Paul unsheathes his sword, declaring the hunt officially open. Helmut unsheathes his weapon, braced for the overwhelming odds, when a sudden spell strikes Paul's blade, blasting him back. Glancing over, Helmut spots a fully armed Aaliyah, who commands the invaders to drop their weapons and run if they value their lives. Paul fumes, realizing his sleeping drug failed, and sneers at the wide-awake teens. Aaliyah ignores the taunt, instructing Helmut to stop looking around and keep his eyes on the enemy ahead. Nearby, one assassin tries to stammer an excuse to Paul about not knowing a mage was there, only to get violently bashed in the head by his leader, who discards the explanation as a pathetic excuse. Paul decides the details don't matter now. He was a fool to trust incompetent subordinates and now must clean up his mess before having a word with the strange kid. Instantly, the ruthless leader charges, clashing his blade against Helmut's, snarling for him to die. Paul floods his steel with vis energy, but Helmut blocks him again. Meanwhile, Max steps up, promising the young mage a quick death if he stays still. In response, Aaliyah flares his magic, warning that a silent sorcerer is a deadly one. Just as an assassin goes crashing through the trees, Helmut and Paul continue trading high-speed blows. The mercenary captain remarks that the boys' early confidence has vanished, claiming they are evenly matched. Helmut realizes that taking on 2 rank 2 mercs and a thief alone would have been suicide, but he is incredibly fortunate to have Aaliyah at his side. Suddenly, Paul roars. The mercenary swings his fist downward to send the boy to hell. Helmut calmly watches. Sand explodes across the ground. Paul sneers, asking if the kid has lost his confidence, or if he already lost. Helmut just tells his opponent to chill out. The fight is only beginning, after all. Naturally, that makes the mercenary rage. Instead, Helmut releases a terrifying pressure and thanks Paul for making the trip. The leader screams that he was the one who dragged him here, but Helmut warns him to watch out. Unleashing his fists, he declares Paul is not worthy. Paul cannot believe the kid has the nerve to challenge a rank 2. He charges forward with a deadly thrust. Helmut dodges effortlessly and slips right behind his opponent, unleashing his energy in a clean, brutal slash. The strike hammers Paul's shoulder, slamming him into the dirt. Helmut steps forward casually as the mercenary groans, unable to believe how a mere boy possesses such insane power. Helmut slaps him, warning that it is none of His business, still, he offers to spare him if he takes his crew and leaves immediately. Paul just laughs, claiming he would rather die than face such humiliation and beg. Helmut snaps back, reminding him that abandoning his own allies to flee is where the real disgrace lies. Helmut walks away to Paul's crazed laughter, hoping his mage ally is managing. Back at the battlefield, the assassins are already wrecked on the floor. Max struggles up, demanding to know who this bastard is. Aaliyah casually responds he is just a mage, levitating rocks. With his magic, amidst the screams of the mercenaries, Aaliyah hurls a stone at them, warning he does not care what they came here to do, but touching his things is a line. He immediately shatters another thug's skull. Max yells that Aaliyah is a cocky brat and charges forward with his halberd. The mage readies a beam spell, calling him nothing but a simple brawler. The blast vaporizes half of Max's body, sending him crashing into a boulder. Aaliyah announces he is taking them all to Bowden, preparing another spell to freeze them. The assassins panic, and the leader orders a full retreat, realizing it is binding magic. The mage casts the spell, capturing the fleeing targets in glowing energy arcs, scoffing at how fast they try to escape. Aaliyah believes he has already dealt with the apparent leader, but as he turns around, he sees that Max has vanished. Did he somehow manage to escape, cowering behind a nearby boulder? Max struggles to breathe. He knew the Black Eagles wanted the target, but nobody warned him about a high-level mage. The fighter wonders where it all went wrong, but senses a presence and hides low as Helmut approaches. The kid walks right past him without even glancing his way. The hidden mercenary notices the boy is completely unharmed. Not a single scratch. He dreads what happened to Paul, fearing his partner was utterly crushed. Meanwhile, Helmut continues on his quiet walk, turning his head. He sees nothing, but he can tell Max is highly capable. Furious, Max slams his forehead against the dirt, cursing his terrible luck. Once he returns to the clearing, Helmut is met by his companion, who casually remarks that he is still breathing before tossing him a rope. Mage orders him to bind the assassins, a command Helmut immediately questions. Bound by magic already, Aaliyah explains he will drag them to Bowden prison, refusing to waste any more mana on keeping them locked up. Young mercenary quietly reflects that Bowden is a place where worst criminals are gathered. He wonders if letting the bandits go was a mistake. Did he miss a great opportunity? Meanwhile, Aaliyah asks how the boy did not pass out. Helmut stays quiet for a moment before answering that he did not drink the poisoned water. Suddenly, Aaliyah fires a spell at him, which the boy easily evades. The mage asks if he even saw it coming. Helmut stays quiet for a moment, then asks the same thing back, pointing out that Aaliyah drank the water himself. The mage retorts, claiming he can easily purify that much. Helmut asks if it is because magic constantly surrounds the mage's body. Surprised by this, Aaliyah asks if he can actually see the magic flow. The boy replies not clearly, but he can feel it. The mage demands to know why he pretended otherwise. Helmut explains he was not curious. If the mage has secrets, that is none of a mercenary's concern. Aaliyah looks away, clearly annoyed by his response, which leaves the boy utterly confused before the mage suddenly spins around, grumbling that he is an arrogant bastard. Gilton finally recovers and stands up, admitting they almost faced a massive disaster. He asks how he can repay Aaliyah, since they are deeply in his debt. The mage refuses any reward, stating he only acted as a guide, but points to Helmut, noting that the young mercenary also helped immensely and did not faint. The young man quickly justifies it, saying he has an unnatural tolerance for drugs. Gilton warmly thanks the boy, mentioning he has heard of such resistance, promising that he will deliver the promised gold as soon as they reach Bowden. Suddenly, Xenia rushes to Leah, grabs his hands and tearfully thanks him for saving them. She declares it is destiny, proposing marriage to repay him, but Aaliyah flatly refuses, revealing he is already engaged and will wed as soon as he reaches the Magic Academy. At this, Cedric bursts out laughing, while Xenia breaks down crying and is comforted by Gilton. The leader decides it is time to resume their march. As the caravan travels on, Gilton remarks that despite their chaotic day, they made it to their destination with no further issues. Approaching the massive walls of Bowden, Helmut slides off his mount to inspect the bustling city. Gilton does the same, calling the young mercenary over to thank him for his incredible work, promising a glowing recommendation at the Mercenary Guild. The man hands 10,000 marks to the Boy as an extra reward, Helmut accepts the coins and notices Aaliyah walking past him. Pulling up his hood, the young man nods at the mage. Steps directly in front of him and pauses. Aaliyah is stunned when Helmut actually thanks him for the help he provided along the way. The mage is shocked, but quickly looks away, muttering. Helmut heads out on his own, knowing now is the perfect moment to find the academy. Roaming the streets, he finds the city, incredibly massive and far busier than the quiet village he visited before. Making his search much harder, slipping into an alleyway, he finally stands before the Greta Academy. Helmut walks past several students and slips inside, wondering where on earth to find a man named Ethan. Kudrow, he spots a receptionist sitting at her desk and approaches. He places his hand on the counter, startling the writing clerk. She asks what brings him by, and Helmut replies that he is looking for Ethan Kudrow. The clerk asks if he wants the instructor. Swordsman, when the boy nods, he explains he is in a rush and asks if he can see him immediately. The clerk nods and asks for his name before leading him to a room, unlocking the door with magic. She requests that he wait inside. The boy nods, thinking to himself that this too is magic. The door swings open and Helmut remembers Darian mentioning his curiosity about it. The clerk tells him to step inside. As he does, a violent gust of wind hits him. The boy stands face to face with Ethan, who claims he has never heard of anyone named Helmut, demanding to know his business. The boy silently estimates that this instructor is weaker than Darian, but compared to other swordsmen he is elite, equivalent to a rank 1 mercenary. Ethan repeats the boy's name, asking again what he wants. Sensing the heavy pressure, the young swordsman draws his blade. The instructor questions this sudden move, but Helmut replies he will understand shortly. Studying the weapon, Ethan thinks it looks cheaply made, yet he notices its incredible balance and beautiful blade. Realizing the weapon looks familiar, he mutters that it is impossible and speaks the name of Darian Depert. Helmut calmly confirms it. Ethan rushes forward, demanding to know if the legendary warrior is still alive. The boy reveals that Darian recently passed away of old age. Leaving the instructor completely devastated and speechless, Ethan mourns the loss, remembering it has been over 20 years since the disappearance of the man he swore to repay for saving him. Seeing the weapon, he concludes that the boy must be Darian's last apprentice and asks why he is visiting. Helmut reveals his goal to enroll in Greta Academy. Ethan now understands why Darian sent him, assuming his late master wanted him to have a guardian. Asked about his age, Helmut admits he has no idea, catching Ethan off guard. Assessing the boy's aura and physique, Ethan estimates he is around 14. He decides to treat him as 15 and suggests he take the transfer student exam. Helmut asks if it is really necessary. Ethan wonders why the disciple of a legendary swordsman would even need this test, thinking that simply revealing his master's identity would secure him an immediate transfer. Helmut looks down at his sword, grateful for Darian's lingering protection, but remembers his master hid in the forest of roots. He recalls Ethan mentioning the legendary swordsman's disappearance, proving that even close friends never knew his location, which indicates that someone exiled him there in secret. If that enemy finds out Darian's apprentice has entered the human world, Helmut fears being dragged back to the forest before destroying the seed of darkness. The young swordsman declares that revealing his master's identity is out of the question. Ethan asks why, and Helmut explains he cannot say much, only that mortal danger awaits him if anyone learns he is Darian's apprentice. The instructor reacts with outrage. Ethan demands to know who would dare harm the legendary swordsman's disciple, but Helmut simply asks for patience, promising to reveal everything when the time is right. Ethan agrees, figuring Darian must have his own plans, and offers to help by promising to fast-track the transfer exam. But before they proceed, the instructor warns that he must test the boy's skills first, gesturing for him to follow. Helmut follows him down to a room Ethan introduces as the underground training facility. The teacher admits the legendary swordsman wouldn't have taken on a student without a good reason, but he still needs to test his level for the upcoming test. He points to a wooden block, ordering Helmut to cut it. The boy reaches to draw his own weapon, but Ethan stops him, telling him to grab one of the wooden swords resting right behind him. The young swordsman swings the blade with blinding speed toward the white vine log. Ethan knows this wood is exceptionally tough, and slicing it would be a feat for any normal kid his age, but he already realizes this boy is anything but ordinary, observing the way the teen moves. With such fluid form, the instructor wonders about his true power level. Helmut abruptly freezes mid-swing, shocking the instructor. The professor quickly praises his incredible skill, declaring he easily qualifies for admission while secretly acknowledging him as Darian's true successor. Helmut then asks to officially register for the academy right away. Ethan notes his physical skills are undeniably top tier, but since he cannot measure the boy's actual intelligence, he warns he must still pass the written exam. Helmut ponders this requirement. Few days later, Ethan's face pales when he reviews the boy's practice exam score of a mere 4, a pathetic grade even for a 5-year-old, with only 10 days left before the exam. The instructor explains their difficult dilemma, warning there is simply not enough time to study, even with private tutoring. Helmut then asks if the instructor himself can tutor him, but Ethan immediately declines because he is an official staff member, which strictly prevents him from tutoring candidates and would cause him serious trouble. He explains that academy students usually tutor around this time, but the top options are already hired, leaving them in a tough spot. Helmut stays quiet, suddenly recalling rumors of a famous elite mage at the school. He asks if Ethan can connect him with a student named Aaliyah. The instructor confirms he can, mentioning the youth enrolled with honors by achieving a perfect score. Helmut decides this is his best option, and since he knows nobody else, he decides to ask him for help, bidding goodbye to leave. Ethan, shocked, asks how the protagonist knows Aaliyah and if he truly plans to approach the elite student. Over at Aaliyah's place, the mage reacts with clear irritation to this unexpected visit, demanding to know what Helmut is doing there, since he remembers no promise to meet again. He flatly refuses to teach ignorant people, especially swordsmen, assuming Helmut only tracked him down due to some commission. Aaliyah states he has no idea why the mercenary is here, but he should study alone if he expects to enter the academy, since he has no plan to help him. Helmut insists he just wants to pass the test and heard that the prodigy is the absolute best. Aaliyah refuses again, demanding he stop wasting his precious time. Helmut offers to pay for lessons, knowing how much humans value money. Aaliyah scoffing, the mage asks if Helmut wants to buy his brain, wondering what a mercenary could even offer. Helmut simply asks for his price, prompting the annoyed mage to state his demand. He demands 100,000 marks up front, no installments, to Aaliyah's shock. Helmut agrees to the price immediately and promises to prepare for the following day. The protagonist calculates his funds: 90,000 marks earned from mercenary work, plus 10,000 from the escort job, which is just enough for the payment. Since time is short, he insists they start tomorrow morning, asking if they can meet here. Aaliyah, still stunned, warns him that lessons only begin if the money is paid up front, demanding that Helmut show up prepared. Any sign of slacking off or lack of effort, and he will cancel the lessons. With that, the mage heads inside. Helmut watches him go, satisfied things went well. Helmut turns around to leave, but from a distance, a green-haired youth observes the scene, finding it fascinating to see Aaliyah hanging out with an acquaintance like that. The next day, Helmut returns to the meeting spot to find Aaliyah waiting outside, looking highly suspicious. The mage asks if he brought the cash. Helmut pulls the 100,000 marks from his cloak, handing them over. Aaliyah accepts and says they will do the tutoring right, but warns he has never taught anyone and won't refund the money if Helmut fails. Helmut calmly replies that he does not care. Aaliyah silently reflects that she should have rejected his request yesterday. She only demanded that massive sum out of pure pride. She tells Helmut to wait outside and says she will be right back, reassuring herself that playing tutor shouldn't be all that difficult. While Helmut studies and signs off on some paperwork, the mage observes him closely, thinking this boy is more troublesome than expected. Observing him closely, she realizes his learning speed is far superior to that of any ordinary mage. She asks if Helmut grew up in a forest, living completely alone his entire life. Helmut realizes the mage picked up on this during their last commission. He knows Aaliyah is no ordinary human, meaning he must tread carefully, so he simply asks why she wants to know. Aaliyah stays silent for a moment, then says Helmut's focus and memory are incredible, but he possesses absolutely nothing beyond the bare basics of ethics and common sense. She points Out that he basically scored a 0 on his ethics test. When Helmut asks what that is, Alia asks how he would handle someone abusing their father's noble influence. Mage explains they need to clear the other subjects quickly so they can focus heavily on ethics during their remaining time, demanding his full attention. 100,000 marks is serious cash, and Helmut paid big money to learn from the best, emphasizing her own reputation is on the line, so she must ensure he passes the Academy's entrance exam no matter what. Helmut silently thinks the mage is one incredibly bizarre human. Moments later, Alia proposes a scenario where classmate steals something from Helmut, asking him what the most ethical response would be. Helmut realizes the mage is heavily implying he cannot resort to violence. Pressed for an answer, Helmut says he would just steal it back secretly. Irritated, Alia snaps that his response is totally wrong. Still, Helmut argues he would settle it peacefully, leading Alia to comment that he surely behaves like a typical swordsman. She explains the ideal solution is to, without learning their lesson, that classmate would just end up stealing. Again, she added that forgiving someone without penance was justice by Academy standards. Helmut found humans incredibly complicated, realizing that he needed to learn ethics and common sense to live in this world, lessons he started learning far too late to become the kind of person Darian described. He had to solve these complex questions, but admitted he would need a lot more time. As the days passed, Helmut continued studying under Alia. 2 weeks later, at the Greta Academy Library, some girls admired Alia. Standing near a pillar, a friend noted that she spent the last few weeks tutoring the boy walking by. Spotting Helmut, Alia asked if he finished, and wondered aloud why the exams were being held in the library. The maid complained about waiting there the entire time, putting her own books and tasks aside to tutor him, asking if he did well. Helmut nodded. Alia figured he would breeze through the practical exam and announced that lessons were officially over, wishing him luck. Helmut thanked her for the help, but Alia replied she got paid and he should focus on working hard. Helmut reflected that everything went smoothly thanks to Alia, and now only the practical exam remained. Over at the swordsmanship department, the transfer students gathered for their test. Helmut quietly approached the crowd as an instructor ordered everyone to wait and split into their respective groups. The boy planned his next steps after the test, remembering how Ethan suggested he rest, though he wanted to train since he had not practiced in a long time. Right then, a young man called out, asking what he was pondering so deeply. The stranger introduced himself as Sabbat Rugel, second son of the Rugel family, and asked for Helmut's name. Helmut immediately suspected the boy's ulterior motives. Sabbat asked if everything was all right, bringing up the Academy regulations, since he had already been admitted. Helmut wondered what those regulations were all about, and why this guy was even approaching him. Sabbat told him to relax, claiming he only wanted to make friends, while secretly noting that Helmut was Alia's student, making it highly advantageous to get close to him, even if he was low class. The boy simply introduced himself as Helmut. Sabbat remarked that the name suited him and asked for his last name, wanting to know which family he belonged to. Helmut knew the only family he had was the one on his pendant, but he kept that to himself. He answered that he had no family name, shocking Sabbat, who realized he was a commoner. The noble burst out laughing at the confirmation and sneered that he never expected to find a commoner here, though he admitted the guy acted with a lot of confidence for someone of that background. Sabbat mocked him, sneering that Helmut should not even try to enter the academy if he knew his place, questioning how a commoner got a tutor, wondering if it was for money or something else. Right then, a man interrupted them, calling the next candidate and warning Sabbat to lower his voice, reminding him that class or gender discrimination was banned in the academy, meaning he had to be far more careful with his words. The man warned. He says he will explain the exam rules in 5 minutes before walking away. On his way past, Sabbat sneers at the boy, warning him to keep his head down and stay out of trouble. But Helmut ignores him and keeps moving. Inside the classroom, the instructor thanks everyone for their efforts on the written exam, wishing them success on the upcoming practical test. It will be conducted in groups and divided into 2 phases. All around him, Helmut feels the heavy weight of hostile glares. He realizes that these people are looking at him just like those thugs from earlier. Clearly, this civilized world is nothing like his home in the forest of roots. Here, humans construct strict social ladders where status is everything, and coming from a noble bloodline matters far more than actual strength. Shaking off the distraction, he focuses on the exam and follows the instructor, who leads the final group into a training room containing a solid black log. The proctor explains that their first task is to split this log within 5 minutes, using a simple wooden sword. They can use vis or not, without fear of instant disqualification. If they fail, handed the wooden weapon, Helmut steps up and decides this challenge is straightforward. The target is just a solid block of wood, not some impossible obstacle. He channels energy to activate his vis, planning to end this test in a flash. The boy strikes with such blinding speed that it shocks the proctor, cleaving the wooden target in half with a single blow. The examiner is stunned, recalling how it took him multiple strikes to split a similar block. Helmut asks if he has passed, receiving a nod of confirmation that he has. Back in the waiting hall, his quiet return immediately draws Sabbath's attention. The bully mocks him, asking if the examiners gave him a rotten target. Promising to demand answers from the supervisor, Helmut simply walks right past him. Soon after, the proctor gathers the remaining candidates to explain the next phase. This round requires an 8-minute duel under the close observation of expert judges who will grade their combat skills. The pairing of opponents is chosen at random, and only combat prowess determines who passes. Sabbath bursts out laughing, boasting that the system is broken and he would breeze through. If matched against a loser like Helmut, seeing the boy's cold stare, Sabbath barks. Helmut observes his challenger silently. The fool keeps instigating fights without knowing his power and decides to handle him. Suddenly, Sabbath senses a terrifying vibe and nervously dares Helmut to throw a punch if he has a problem. The boy reflects on how incredibly irritating this guy is and how a good thrashing would shut him up for good, but the instructor steps in to read off the scheduled matchups. The first fight pits Helmut against a boy named Andro. Sabbath mutters that he wanted a real challenge, while his buddy remarks that Andro lucked out with this opponent. Helmut walks off, knowing he will get his chance to handle Sabbath later. In the arena, the two fighters square up before the panel of examiners. Ethan and his fellow proctors welcome them to the second round. Helmut quickly spots his mentor sitting among the judges. The other supervisor notes that this candidate is Ethan's own recommendation, adding that since it's his first, he anticipates witnessing a true prodigy. Ethan calmly promises that the reason for his choice will reveal itself the second the match starts. The match will consist of 2 8-minute rounds, stopping immediately if either fighter loses grip of their weapon. With the rules set, the battle begins. Andro takes a slow, deep breath, remembering the rumors about his opponent. The kid is just a peasant who managed to fell a blackwood tree, but he clearly lacks any formal combat training. Confident in his victory, Andro relies on basic childhood sword techniques. However, Helmut suddenly charges forward like a bullet. The violent impact slams Andro hard against the wall, leaving the instructors completely stunned. While Ethan watches silently, the boy points his blade directly at his rival, asking if the match is already over. The referee quickly intervenes, declaring that competitor number 8 is unable to continue. Andro shakes with sheer terror, realizing he lost to a mere peasant. Witnessing this, a female instructor marvels at Helmut's incredible speed and power. Struggling to believe he is just a child, her colleague nods in agreement, noting the massive gap between him and other rookies his age, making it impossible to gauge his true level if the battle ends this quickly. Ethan observes that the boy is exceptionally gifted and powerful, while Helmut calmly reminds them that they still have 1 round left. To fix this, Ethan instructs Helmut not to end the fight so quickly, but to spar as if he is training his opponent. This style matches how masters teach swordsmanship. The young warrior grips his hilt tightly, recalling the early days of his training, and nods in quiet understanding. Ethan nods and calls Andro back to the ring, advising him that sparring with Helmut will help him grow, since the kid is exceptionally skilled. For his age, Andro nods and readies his blade, acknowledging his opponent's power. He apologizes for letting arrogance get the best of him due to status, but insists his warrior pride won't allow him to lose so easily. He charges forward with a heavy downward slash, but Helmut blocks it effortlessly. Helmut calmly warns him that his swings must be much faster, as a simple, direct attack is easy to predict. Andro retreats for a moment, but Helmut immediately closes the gap, striking key vital spots while warning him that his balance is off. All of his weight shifts forward when he focuses solely on the attack. Grunting through the pain, Andro lunges once more. Helmut easily sidesteps the blade, explaining that altering directions is nearly impossible. When rushing headlong, advising him to guard his vulnerable flanks, while simultaneously noting that his footing was completely broken, Ethan watches the lesson. Suddenly reminded of his own past, fighting against a savage beast, he had cried out in pain, dropping his sword, waiting for his life to end. But then a golden flash shredded everything in sight, and Darian called him a weakling, snapping that he would die if he kept fighting so poorly. Sword Saint commanded him to stand, a memory that makes Ethan sigh as he watches Helmut challenge his rival, feeling as if his old master has returned. Soon after, the instructors announce that they have finalized their list of candidates, highlighting their diverse talents and immense potential. Ethan quietly reviews Helmut's evaluation files, noting with a smirk that this kid is going to become a monster. 1 week later, in Bowden, Helmut walking down the street, he recalls his last visit and spots the mercenary guild. Looking to the side, Helmut steps inside and is greeted by a young boy. The boy asks if he has a request, but Helmut clarifies his true purpose. He came to retrieve something that belongs to him, prompting an apology. The clerk asks if he is a mercenary, noting his noble appearance. He asks which group Helmut belongs to. Helmut names the Pace Mercenaries. He explains that he left his belongings here during his last visit. The receptionist, a self-proclaimed rookie, verifies the documents and asks a question. He asks what mission Helmut wants next. Helmut hesitates, suddenly remembering the past. He recalls Ethan slamming his hand on the table, demanding an explanation. He demanded to know where Helmut obtained those 100,000 marks. Helmut had explained that he saved everything he earned as a mercenary. Ethan was relieved he got the money, but hoped he did not overdo it. The master then promised to teach him how to manage his finances. As his guardian, Ethan told him not to worry so much anymore. Still, extra money is useful, since living without it is like being a beast. This grim realization made Helmut ask if earning money was all that mattered. His tutor explained that was just how the world worked back then. He reminded Helmut he had 1 month before enrolling at the academy. Helmut planned to take on some quick mercenary jobs before that time. His master agreed, provided they were neither dangerous nor too time-consuming. Back in reality, Helmut specifies he wants a high-paying job in Baden. It must be completed within the next month. The clerk notes the highly specific request and hands him a paper. The location is strange. Helmut asks where this place actually is. The clerk reveals it is Greta Academy. By dusk, Helmut is walking there. He reviews the request, which reports a ghost sighting inside the academy. The spirit appears at night in various spots, leaving no physical evidence. The job is to identify the entity and eliminate it completely. Helmut accepted the mission because he needed to scout the campus. Still, this is the most bizarre job he has ever taken. It makes him wonder if he made a huge mistake here. Suddenly, a voice calls out, demanding to know who Helmut is. The stranger quickly recognizes the young boy as Aaliyah's new pupil. Confused, Helmut asks what this strange person is talking about. The mage notes it is unusual for Aaliyah to have company. Helmut asks if the young man is also a talented mage like his friend. The guy confirms it, though he claims their magic styles are different. He touches the ground, unleashing a brilliant, surprising surge of power. A glowing creature of pure light emerges, darting toward Helmut. Fearing an attack, Helmut instinctively swings his hand to strike it. However, his physical blow passes straight through the glowing entity. It leaves the summon completely unharmed, leaving Helmut highly confused. The mage laughs, saying Helmut is the first to attack a rattan. Bewildered, Helmut asks what kind of creature this rattan is. Young man explains that it is actually a harmless, though mischievous, light spirit. It cannot be physically blocked because it has no solid body. He adds that few mages can control spirits, introducing himself as Sane. The sole elementalist at Greta Academy, Helmut realizes he could easily defeat the creature if he wanted, but finds the young mage quite friendly. He says it is a pleasure to meet him, but mentions his ongoing mission. Before turning to leave, Sane quickly guesses that Helmut is a mercenary, asking if he is investigating the ghost sighting inside the academy. Helmut asks how. He figured that out, and Sane admits the case caught his interest, asking if he can tag along. Soon, the two enter a creepy, abandoned building. Helmut wonders if this is where the specter was recently seen, and Sane nods, explaining that the old building belongs to the swordsman department, though it empties out completely the moment the sun sets. A strange figure appears upstairs just as Sane remarks that the atmosphere is eerie. He figures that unless it is a hostile spirit conjured by magic, this hunt should not be overly dangerous. Helmut suggests they split up to search, catching Sane off guard. The swordsman calls it the most efficient route, but the mage insists that sticking together is much safer, and two heads are better than one. Sane asks what Helmut will do when they face the apparition, and the swordsman calmly promises to destroy it. Meanwhile, a cloaked figure glides through the dark corridors as the duo enters a room. Sane hesitates, but Helmut finds nothing inside. Sane wonders if the specter moved to another building, but Helmut warns that aimless wandering will lead them nowhere without solid clues. They must find a lead first. The swordsman calls out to his companion, but the elementalist is totally distracted, staring down the hall in awe. Helmut asks if he saw something, but the mage denies it, suggesting another room instead. Helmut agrees. Outside, the young mage asks how many days remain to complete this hunting request, but he suddenly flinches as he catches sight of something nearby. Helmut replies he has 10 days left. Asking what is wrong, Sane slowly points toward a ghostly figure down the hallway. Helmut grips his hilt, preparing to draw, wondering if this is the target. The figure approaches, asking what the two of them are doing there before lowering her hood to reveal herself as Aaliyah. Helmut tosses the quest flyer to her. Sane explains he is helping his friend locate the Academy ghost, spotting the 3,000 marks reward on the paper. Aaliyah asks why Helmut took this on despite his other duties, wondering if all mercenaries behave like this. The young swordsman simply replies that he has too much spare time. Sane asks why Aaliyah is there, and she sighs, explaining she also received a mission issued directly from the Academy. Surprised, Sane admits he did not expect her to care and asks about the bounty, but Aaliyah claims she was simply curious. Meanwhile, Helmut wonders if things are truly urgent for the Academy to issue two requests. Sane suggests they search together to save time. Helmut and Aaliyah stare at each other in silence. Sane proposes they split up, but they agree to investigate together. When asked, Helmut gives a silent nod. Moments later, Aaliyah conjures an illusion that hovers right over the table, explaining that according to reports, the specter appeared in the auditorium, the training grounds, the teacher's lounge, and the gym. Zion points out that these spots all belong to the swordsmanship department. Aaliyah nods, noting that the apparition completely avoids the magic department. Helmut considers the possibility of it being another mage, but Zion argues someone would hear the incantation unless it was silent. Aaliyah cuts in, arguing a skilled mage wouldn't pull a prank like this, suggesting that if it's a non-human creature, it might just avoid mages. Zion agrees, reasoning the entity is likely weak against magic. But Helmut reminds them that ghosts don't take physical damage. Aaliyah asks how he knows, but the swordsman stays silent, remembering his talk with instructor Ethan. Back then, the instructor mentioned a brave student who tried slashing the specter with a sword, only for the blade to pass right through. Aaliyah wonders if it is a genuine ghost or something else entirely. Helmut smiles, wondering if he has ever been on equal footing in a conversation before. He was always scolded by Aaliyah or Darian, and chats with the mercenaries in Pace's group never went deep. He realizes that although the three of them hold different knowledge, pooling their ideas lets them find answers piece by piece. Realizing this is what a real conversation feels like, Aaliyah calls out to Helmut, asking what would happen if he used his power against the intangible creature. Knowing he is highly skilled, Helmut ponders the possibility and releases a burst of energy, warning he will use the technique when the time comes. Zion gasps that he almost died of fright and too tired to think, suggests they check the other buildings later. The mage gets up to rest, warning his friends not to overexert themselves and to stay safe. As soon as he leaves and shuts the door, Helmut and Aaliyah lock eyes. Aaliyah asks if his companion has any theories, and Helmut considers a formless, malicious entity that avoids mages, asking where they can find a spirit. Aaliyah praises his quick learning but explains that Since he is not an elemental mage, he cannot detect spirits easily. Helmut asks what their next move is, and his friend turns around, asking if he already forgot the answer, since they have Cyan, a highly talented elemental mage. The boy suddenly dashed toward his home. Helmut and Aaliyah bolt down the corridor with the swordsman asking where Cyan is heading. Aaliyah replies that their classmate is likely chasing the spirit. Helmut marvels at how Cyan managed to sense the entity so quickly. Replaying their conversation, he realizes Aaliyah knew it was a spirit all along, simply wanting to force Cyan to track it down. Aaliyah admits he got lucky, claiming this was the only method he could think of. The two finally step out of the main building. Aaliyah halts and Helmut asks why. He is pausing when they need to catch up to Cyan quickly. The mage replies that he just needs a direction. Pressing his hand to the dirt, he unleashes search magic. Glowing footprints appear. Aaliyah studies the tracks and notes they lead straight to the department's training grounds, adding that Cyan definitely has no idea of the exact location. They have to track him down as quickly as possible, and Helmut nods. Minutes pass before Aaliyah uses magic to quietly unlock a heavy door, warning him that access to this training ground is heavily restricted. He explains that the entire facility is strictly partitioned by student rank and grade. If the spirit wants peace and quiet, it must have chosen the least active sector, ruling out the crowded common fields. Instead, the entity is likely lurking near the high-grade student sector, but Helmut looks up at the facility and points out that Professor Ethan actually keeps a private training ground on his own land. Aaliyah asks if that is his personal field, and Helmut replies that nobody would dare trespass there. His companion glances to the side and asks if they are seriously sneaking in without permission, but Helmut insists that since they are fulfilling an official request, the instructor will understand. Aaliyah suddenly senses an energy signature like Sion's, confirming the spirit is waiting inside. Helmut calls out to him, asking if this academy request is actually legitimate. Aaliyah glances back, muttering that he has no reason to lie to him anymore, admitting he hates the fact that their academy has only a single elemental mage. Helmut quickly pieces it together, realizing that his friend intends to capture the entity for research. Aaliyah readily admits to it, but promises he will still complete the mission requirements, as agreed. Snapping his fingers, he casts a silence spell, warning that he has completely erased their presence. Now, he demands Helmut help him set up a trap. Immediately, Helmut asks what happens if he declines, and Aaliyah coldly reminds him that this is no way for a mercenary to settle a debt. Suddenly, Helmut spins around, sensing a strange surge of energy radiating from the corner of the wall. Aaliyah asks what is wrong and why he went completely silent, but Helmut just stares at a towering, monstrous creature, muttering that the academy's ghost has finally shown itself. Aaliyah rushes forward, praising his partner's sharp eyes as he charges to greet the beast, immediately summoning a stone wall to trap it. Phantom easily evades his incoming spells, which shatter against the dirt, but Aaliyah snaps at it to stay and drops a spatial barrier. Helmut asks what it is, and the mage explains it is a seal to prevent escape. Since he has to remain completely still to anchor the barrier, he orders Helmut to weaken the target. Helmut draws his blade, knowing normal weapons won't harm the ghost, charging forward with his vis at extreme speed. The entity attempts to block the strike, but Helmut slices it clean in half, destroying its massive body. Now it mutates into a grotesque walking mouth. Helmut realizes this is the only way to damage the beast, wondering if the blows were actually enough. Suddenly, the monster locks eyes with him and lunges at him. Helmut realizes his strike was not powerful enough yet, so he swings his sword again, intending to pour far more energy into his next strike. This head-on collision between warrior and beast would surely decide the battle, but Shin suddenly intervenes, casting a devastating rotten spell. The magical barrier traps both Helmut and the Phantom. Shin halts right before them, demanding to know what the hero was thinking. Helmut calls to his companion while Shin questions why he provoked the specter. The mage explains that this self-aware shadow spirit requires a much more careful touch. Shin shields them behind a brilliant wall of light, but warns that his binding magic is already starting to fail. Helmut notes that the entity looks absolutely furious. Aaliyah wonders how they can capture the rampaging specter, prompting Shin to spin around in frustration, asking why he wants to lock up this adorable creature for testing. Aaliyah snaps back, arguing that this unique academy elemental has always refused to cooperate with them. With their research, Shin yells that it ran because Alaya only wanted to conduct terrifying tests, warning that once they corner the beast, it will seal itself away forever. He stresses that losing the phantom poses a grave threat, urging Alaya to hold the barrier while instructing Helmut to distract the hostile spirit as long as he can. Without striking it, Shin can attempt to soothe the beast. The hero steps forward with his fist sword, warning that he will try, though he has no idea how long he can last without fighting. He notes the enemy is incredibly fast, but he can still match its pacing, preparing to exchange light strikes with the specter without causing any harm. Shin begs them to buy him just a bit more time to cast. Phantom shrieks, morphing its form into jagged edges that spin like a deadly drill. Sensing the extreme danger, Helmut leaps out of the way. Realizing the creature knows he is holding back, he wonders if he should terrify it instead, gripping his hilt tightly. Seeing this, Shin shouts a warning. But the specter strikes again, and though the protagonist dodges the direct hit, he is blasted into the stone wall and crashes down hard. Shin yells that the spirit's defenses are crumbling, meaning he must handle things himself now. Stepping forward as glowing runes flare to life, the phantom attempts to flee, only to slam hard into the overhead barrier. Alaya recoils in pain from the feedback, screaming for Shin to act as the beast struggles to shatter the containment. Shin replies that he is fully aware and that the phantom deeply fears elemental magic. The creature writhes, staring intently at the two mages before lunging straight for a terrified Alaya. Shin screams out in panic, but Helmut leaps in to intercept the deadly threat, parrying the beast with his blade. But the specter slips right past his guard, evading Helmut completely to pursue. Alaya, swearing, the mage quickly conjures a shield with her free hand. The beast grins wickedly, seizing control of her mind, while easily evading another desperate swing from Helmut. Shin yells that the spirit is escaping, prompting our hero to sprint and leap to strike the beast, which cowers in terror at his approach. Helmut shouts to Shin before letting loose his attack, demanding he do something immediately. Closing the distance to the phantom's skull, suddenly his blade hesitates and Helmut wonders if the entity is genuinely terrified. Just then, Shin completes his spell and orders the beast to face him, drawing it back into a glowing orb of pure light. Inside his territory, Alaya and Helmut watch closely as thick smoke fills the space. Shin sighs, holding the spirit, warning that only elemental mages can raise spirits, leaving Alaya deeply disappointed. Soon, the group departs. Shin presents the captured spirit to the receptionist at the Mercenary Guild, who asks if this tiny thing is the troublesome beast. The clerk finds the situation intriguing, wondering what a spirit was doing there. Shin answers there could be several causes, like the influence of magic distorting the Earth's natural mana, or even lingering dark forces, but the main thing is that everyone is safe. Shin notes that Helmut took the quest but claims the actual capture was all his doing, only to be cut off by an irritated Alaya. Together, they leave the guild. Shin grumbles about showing them the dark spirit without receiving a reward, but Alaya reminds him they were already told how this works. The clerk told them to return in a few days, adding that the payout would not even go to Shin. Suddenly, the spirit proclaims Helmut is his new friend. Helmut repeats the word to himself while Shin enthusiastically agrees. He explains they now share a bond of mutual support and that destiny clearly meant for them to become allies. Shin extends his hand, asking Helmut to look after him from this moment forward. Helmut ponders the meaning of friendship, thinking of Finn, and ultimately decides to shake Shin's hand, figuring it might be nice. Shin laughs, calling over to Alaya to join them, but the mage storms off, calling them fools. Walking home, Alaya snaps at them to keep him out of their schemes, reminding them they still must clean the wrecked training grounds. Later, in Ethan's dining hall, Helmut studies a document and asks what it is, noticing the assignment details for the third floor and room 301. Ethan explains that is his dorm, where everyone is required to reside. Helmut simply nods and says he is ready, while his mentor mentions the opening ceremony is tomorrow, suggesting he check out his quarters tonight to get settled. Helmut heads over to the academy campus, noting how different it feels. Days ago it was empty, but now it is buzzing with crowd energy. Hearing an announcement for male students to organize their luggage, Helmut approaches and presents his letter of admission. The academy staff Officer tells him to wait, then gasps after seeing room 301. On the third floor, inside that room, everything is pristine, Aaliyah utterly exhausted. After overworking himself lately, vows never to become close with anyone. Ever again, this bizarre incident only brought him endless trouble, and he secretly blames his own weak constitution. Meanwhile, Helmut walks down the corridor with his key, stopping before door 301. Inside, Aaliyah grumbles that his life went downhill the moment they met, wishing to never see his face once academy lectures begin. Helmut twists the brass handle and enters, staring directly at Aaliyah in her female form. Elsewhere, Max rages with fury, screaming that the Black Falcons are not a threat to be ignored. Terrified lackey stammers that security around Bowden has been heavily reinforced. Max demands answers, but Paul cuts in, ordering their immediate execution. According to the code of the Black Falcons, Max laughs and agrees. They defy their commanders, but a mysterious voice suddenly interrupts them, asking, "Who is executing whom?" The voice mocks them, pointing out their failure to defeat a mere kid, which made tracking them down incredibly easy. Paul spins around, furious, but the dark figure easily dodges his slash, decapitating him instantly. Max turns to see his friend's lifeless body, trembling with absolute terror, demanding to know who the intruder is, shouting for them to stop hiding. Figure asks who is actually hiding this whole time, mocking them for dragging the name of the Black Falcons through the mud, though they survived surprisingly long. The figure stands, announcing he has questions for both them and the local civilians, leaving everyone paralyzed with fear. Back at the dorm, Helmut opens the door but finds the room empty. Stunned by the luxurious space, he silently reflects on his journey since leaving the Forest of Roots, surviving the pace, mercenaries, and finally managing to enter the Greta Academy. Fully determined to focus entirely on building his strength, he suddenly notices movement in the corner of his room. Helmut reaches to draw his blade, only to remember he is weaponless, leaving him face to face with Aaliyah, who now appears in his usual male form. The protagonist asks if he is also staying in this room, and an irritated Aaliyah threatens to blow him to pieces for invading his space. Helmut explains he was officially assigned to this room, leaving Aaliyah completely stunned. He asks if there is an issue, and the mage points out the 2 beds added during the school break. Helmut asks where he is going, and Aaliyah snaps that he is heading to the bathroom. Before exiting, Aaliyah warns Helmut not to touch anything in the room unless he wants to be blown up, ordering him to stay put. Helmut notes to himself that he really should detest being treated this way. Meanwhile, inside the Greta Academy building, director Liam Weiss calmly sips coffee in his office. Aaliyah bursts inside, screaming directly at the director, demanding to know why she was assigned a roommate when Liam promised her a private room in the magic department. The director silently thinks to himself that he expected this reaction, but he offers an apology and explains the change occurred because they are running incredibly short on academy guards. Aaliyah demands he honor his promise for a private space, highlighting the dangerous risk of Helmut discovering she is actually a girl. Liam urges her to be careful, pointing out that she wields the power of a true archmage, but she snaps back that she cannot afford to take chances around potential enemies, sweating coldly. The director argues that granting her a private room would look like obvious favoritism. Instead, he intentionally matched her with a roommate she was already familiar with. Leah scoffs at that closeness, arguing she was merely hired to tutor him and that she plans to act like complete strangers here, even though she remembers their shared journey perfectly. Liam insists it is his responsibility to help her make friends, promising a single room next semester. Watching the young mage storm out, the director hopes she will eventually change her mind and realize Helmut is a good guy. Back in the dorm, Helmut stares at Aaliyah in silence, noting that she clearly did not get what she complains that he must be enjoying this, asking if he really wants to stay. Helmut replies that it is a necessity, which leaves Aaliyah frustrated. She hates this new routine and suggests teleporting him right out of the school, but he explains that instructor Ethan would never allow that. She warns him that she is highly strict and living together will be tough. She asks one more time if he is absolutely sure about his decision. Helmut thinks for a moment and confirms, telling her that she is still his best option out of everyone. Surprised by this, Aaliyah realizes he is the person she has talked to the most, admitting he is better than other boys. muttering that she should not have helped him. Soon, the next day, carriages arrive at the academy. Helmut carries his bags, telling Aaliyah that he has already brought his things, while she plans how they will divide the space. Heading up the stairs and entering the room, he asks if she made a decision. Aaliyah points directly to a large curtain dividing the room in half, explaining that the side protected by her alarm spell is strictly off limits. Helmut agrees, and she begins laying down the rest of their house rules, telling him to call her only if he needs something. The boy accepts these conditions. Before settling in, he hopes they get along, but she just nods her head, ending their day. Outside, a group of students gossips about the commoner who passed the entrance exam with Ethan's help. One of them cannot wait to challenge him, urging Sabbath to show the new kid the brutal gap between social classes. Noting that there is no swordsmanship class tomorrow, they decide to ignore their rival for now. The next day, Helmut puts on his new uniform, impressed by its high quality, remembering Aaliyah's advice to keep a low profile this semester. He heads straight to the training room after his initial classes. In the hallway, Cyan approaches, shocked to see him leave room 301. Helmut asks if there is a problem, and Cyan explains that is Aaliyah's private dorm, unique privilege granted by the academy administration. Cyan asks how she ever agreed to share her space, since she usually avoids everyone. Still, he advises his friend to stay calm while living with her. He also reminds Helmut that swordsmanship class is today, warning him to steer clear of trouble and avoid the mad dog. Helmut asks about the nickname, and Cyan explains it belongs to Asuka, the top second-year student, who brutally knocked out all his classmates last year. Although the academy suspended the violent student back then, his suspension is over now. Cyan warns Helmut to do his absolute best in class and retreat to his room if Aaliyah gets angry. The young warrior accepts the advice and goes about his routine. At the training grounds, the students gather until the instructor orders everyone to fall into formation. After asking about their vacation, the teacher announces the start of their physical test, ordering everyone to run 20 laps around the track, while the other students complain about the exhausting effort. Helmut finds the task incredibly simple. Next to him, a student takes offense to the commoner's elegant running posture and decides to stick his foot out to trip him. Helmut easily dodges the obstacle and keeps running. The thug tries his trick. After failing several times, the troublemaker decides to step directly on his rival's foot, but Helmut sweeps his leg quickly, making the instigator lose his balance and crash to the floor. The instructor asks what happened, but the fallen student claims he merely slipped, while Helmut calmly continues on his way. Following the warm-up, the teacher steps up to announce a short break and requests a volunteer to bring the gear. The angry attacker approaches Helmut and tries to strike his face, accusing the boy of tripping him. Helmut easily slips the blow, pointing out the other guy moved first. The arrogant noble demands an immediate apology, threatening Helmut's life outside the academy walls and demanding he learn his place as a peasant. Sabbath steps in, telling his ally Aaron to save his strength for the upcoming duel. Aaron storms off under the gaze of Helmut, who wonders if that weakling relies solely on family status and if he should teach him a proper lesson right then and there. Just then, a blue-haired youth wanders over and asks if they are gossiping about commoner. Aaron demands to know who he is, and the teenager introduces himself as a new transfer student, checking if there is an issue here. Sabbath immediately complains about having filthy commoners in his class, and the blue-haired youth warns that he dislikes it too, but promises to show them the consequences if he loses his temper. Sabbath flares up, but his friend quickly quiets him down, whispering something that completely alters his mood. The noble backs off, shocked to discover the notorious Oscar is in this very class. At that name, Helmut recalls the warning from Shin and recognizes the student. The instructor wheels in barrels of training swords, ordering everyone to pick up their equipment, but instantly spots Oscar trying to hide in the crowd. Confronted about being late, Oscar makes up an excuse involving instructor Patricia. The teacher easily exposes the lie, knowing his colleague is away from the academy, and orders 30 laps around the training hall, while Oscar accepts his punishment with loud complaints. Helmut observes that the boy truly has a terrible reputation. Soon, the instructor orders the students to begin practicing individually. Under his watchful eye, Helmut starts working on his vertical strikes, replicating the form of Darian's style and catching the attention of the instructor, who studies his form before moving on. Helmut muses over Ethan's claim that this class would be simple, though he suspects things will get tougher over the coming years. As he ponders this, Oscar approaches and calls out, asking if he plans to offer any thanks for diffusing that tense situation. Earlier, Helmut coldly replies that he never asked for help, but Oscar notes that he knows Helmut is a fellow commoner, offering his hand in partnership. To get along, Helmut narrows his eyes, noticing the boy's hand is coated in vis. Oscar chuckles at his sharp intuition, but firmly establishes right from the start that Helmut should not cling to him just because they share peasant backgrounds, which he finds annoying. Helmut looks away, but Oscar demands they maintain a decent relationship. Once the boy departs, Helmut gently touches his own shoulder, still feeling the lingering pressure. Back in his room, he asks Aaliyah if he seems like the kind of target people easily pick fights with. The mage answers no, and she mentions he looks like he had a rough day, adding those guys were probably just losers desperately clinging to their status. Everything will change once he proves his worth. Helmut mentions that Ethan warned him to avoid trouble, but Aaliyah argues that more enemies only play into his hands if they strike first. The protagonist wonders if there is a peaceful way out, while she brings up dual classes, never stopping her brushing. Helmut stares at the ground, lost in thought. Sensing his mood, the young girl asks what is wrong, noting that the old Helmut would have easily trashed them all by now. Still quiet, Helmut admits that picking a fight with Asuka is a terrible idea. Besides, there is someone else he cannot seem to understand. Meanwhile, Asuka walks past Sabbath and his crew. All eyes are on him as the noble sneers that Asuka is acting tough with his new peasant friend, but reality will hit him once grades come out, vowing to tame the wild mad dog into an obedient pet. Asuka keeps his head down, then suddenly cracks one of the lackeys. The boy yells, demanding to know why he was hit. Asuka mockingly claims his hand slipped out of pure excitement, daring the noble to try and tame him right this second instead of waiting. He asks what he plans to do. At Greta Academy, class discrimination is not officially recognized at first, but no rules stop social isolation and brutal bullying, forcing commoners to bow to nobles. That dynamic shifted when Asuka arrived, a beast known as the top fighter and a total mad dog. He challenges the nobles to do something besides just staring. Sabbath brings up last year's rumors, noting he truly lives up to his wild reputation. Asuka asks if the elite is too scared to take him on, while Sabbath mocks him, pointing out his recent quiet behavior since the suspension, asking if another penalty would ruin him. Asuka's eyes turn ice cold with rage, and he promises to give his rival exactly what he wants. Sabbath steps up, daring him to mockingly calling him a skilled beast who is completely powerless in high society, knowing he will not dare strike back and show his limits. The noble and his friends laugh in his face, teasing that the mad dog is now a harmless puppy. At this, Oscar drops his head and charges forward to strike the noble. Right at that very instant, Oscar takes a wooden sword straight to the face, while Sabbath gets struck on the back of his neck, sending both boys crashing hard to the dirt. Instructor Patricia steps up, demanding to know if they became trainees just to be thugs, highlighting the severe consequences of starting campus brawls. Oscar yells back in his own defense, arguing that he was outnumbered and the noble started it, but Patricia smacks him to shut him up, commanding him to stop using his fists. She then glares at Sabbath, reminding him he is not above anyone else and must judge peers solely by their strength. The noble rises, claiming he will remember the warning. The instructor then announces that their next class. She barks orders at Oscar to follow her, while the other nobles filter out. Once outside, Patricia sighs deeply and smacks her student again, sparking instant complaints. She snaps at him to control his temper, reminding him he learned absolutely nothing. He clearly learned nothing from his first suspension. She explains that his status as top student is his only saving grace. But next time, she warns, she will not protect him from the consequences. Dealing with him is exhausting, and she refuses to waste such perfect opportunities. Under her heavy glare, Oscar stays quiet, though his anger is clearly boiling. Meanwhile, Patricia recalls the quiet new recruit, Helmut, who caused zero trouble today. Knowing the newcomer is a fellow commoner, Oscar expects him to be impressive. He pictures the quiet, mysterious guy he caught a glimpse of earlier in class. But when Patricia mentions their brief meeting, the arrogant young noble scoffed. He claimed he had no interest in making friends, proving how incredibly rude he is. Over at the new training grounds, Patricia knocks loudly to call the session to order. She demands everyone focus up and checks to see if anyone is still missing. One student speaks up, revealing that Helmut has not arrived yet. After confirming Jerome passed along the directions, she commands him to find the boy. Right then the door swings wide, and Helmut calmly steps inside the room. Confronted about his tardiness, the young man claims he did not know. Patricia pivots to Jerome, demanding to know if he explained the change clearly. Jerome insists he did. Patricia asks Helmut again, who only stares back in silence. He locks eyes with Jerome in silence while the other students snicker. Sensing foul play, the instructor urges Helmut to speak up, but he hesitates. Instead, he simply apologizes, claiming he must have misheard the directions given. His submissive act catches Patricia and Oscar off guard, while Jerome smirks. Accepting his blame, she sentences Helmut to run 10 full laps as punishment. The boy accepts without complaint. As training starts, Oscar watches him with growing disdain. He decides the newcomer is just another pathetic, weak-willed commoner. Meanwhile, Patricia gathers heavy spheres to test their sword stability and grip strength. Students must deflect the incoming projectiles using only the flats of their blades. Anyone who fails to keep them aloft for 30 minutes cannot leave. Once the class agrees, Patricia calls Helmut over to assist her. Watching closely, Oscar recalls how fierce the rookie seemed just yesterday. Yet here he is, playing the submissive dog the second authority steps in. Oscar prides himself on being different. He would never bend his knee to anyone. He would die before bowing his head to these arrogant nobles. Helmut glances aside, grabs a ball, and launches it directly at Jerome. It flies at absolute thunderous speed, slamming directly into the boy's gut. The impact completely winds Jerome, leaving Patricia and Oscar absolutely stunned. As Jerome writhes on the floor, Helmut deadpans a completely fake apology. He claims his distance threw off his aim, leaving us to wonder what he's planning. What on earth is this guy playing at? Training continues in tense silence. Later on, Jerome glares at his fresh bruises in the locker room mirror. Furious, he wonders how that lowlife peasant dared to strike him. Sabat shrugs, calling him dramatic over a simple hit. Ball, but the kid snaps back that it felt like getting smashed by a rock. Jerome then asks if Sabat is really going to let that slide, reminding him they still have to deal with Oscar. The noble sighs heavily. Aaron agrees that Oscar has always been a pain, pointing out that the rookie thinks he can act like that, claiming these commoners have completely forgotten their place. Sabat takes a slow breath, drops the cloth on the floor, and warns them not to act like that, ordering them to play nice with those guys starting tomorrow. His sidekicks ask if they heard right, stunned that he wants to tolerate the commoners. Sabat snaps at them to shut up, clarifying he never said to make friends, but they should play along nicely while he keeps watch. Jerome asks what he means by that, and Sabat smiles, telling him to just wait and see. The next day, Shin walks in, pointing out that his friend got in trouble after just 2 days. Helmut smiles, taking it in stride as a positive, which instantly makes the young mage drop his dramatic posture. Shin asks what actually happened, but Aaliyah snaps at him to get